powered by Riverside FM.
On this episode of Bullet Time, Jackie's back in Digital Extreme's 2012 shooter, The Darkness 2. So, you have never played The Darkness 2, right?
Never touched it. I've not even seen like a screenshot of gameplay. I've seen like maybe like one or two shots of the game. Otherwise, it was just the cover art.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. I didn't even know there was a Darkness 2 until like, I think it was an even stupid thing of just somebody had contacted me and asked me, hey, I'm making a video about The Darkness 2. Can I get a thumbnail for it? And I was like, oh, I didn't even know they made a second. I thought they'd only done the first. The second one is news to me. And then, yeah, having a look at all the screenshots and going, oh, was this like a downloadable title or something? Why does it look like this? And then,
it does have that. Yeah, I could see you feeling that like from a screenshot, like the UI and like, especially if there's like words in the middle of the screen. You're like, what the fuck is headshot plus 10? What are you talking about?
You know what this game reminds me a ton of, and I don't know if you've ever played it, and I think this is why it gave me downloadable game vibes. Call of Juarez Gunslinger.
Oh yeah, I've not, but I've been meaning to, because that I've heard good things.
Yeah, a lot of positive juice behind that, and I think that had been designed. Like the thing is that I have that on Steam, so like you know that's the like every game is kind of like presented on a similar platform. There's no such thing as a big game or a small game. It's just all games. Whereas I think when it came to the 360, it might have been an XBLA release, or it may have got a full release. I can't remember, but I think it had been planned as being a downloadable title. But yeah, that is very much like smaller arenas. It's very obviously 3D models, probably even 3D models that have been reused from other projects, but they've thrown a bunch of like shader effects on them to be like, hey, look, it's it's hand drawn, like we've animated it kind of thing. And yeah, when you shoot guys, giant numbers pop out of them. I mean, it was also kind of a thing of that era of like, actually, you know what? Before I even go on to that, hi folks, welcome to Bullet Time, the video. Yeah, well, before we talk too much about the game, before even saying why we're here, this is Bullet Time, the video game podcast that analyzes the shooters that miss their marks. Picking things back up with The Darkness. We covered that last episode. It's the same crew again. It's me, James, and also back in the chair is we're getting a double dose of him. Is Zach? Hello.
What's up? I'm back. Like the darkness.
Back. Yeah. Back in black. Hit the sack. Can't remember the rest of the lyrics for that song.
Been too long. I'm glad to be back. Yes, I'm let loose from the noose that's kept me hanging about. Sorry. I was a big AC/DC kid.
You know what's funny? The first album I ever bought was High Voltage by AC/DC.
Oh, nice.
And it was purely because I was really into what's it called? Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4.
Yes,
which has TNC as the cover, as the like the theme over the like beginning video. And I think I was about, because that game came out in 2002. I think it was like an early GameCube game.
Yeah,
and that would have been like my first year of secondary school, and all my friends at that time were getting into rock and heavy metal, and I was like, oh, well, if I want to be part of the crew, I better do the same thing. So I was like, well, what possible rock music could I like? And then, you start up Tony Hawk's 4 and, you hear TNC and I go, oh, maybe I could give AC/DC a try. So I'm going to buy High Voltage by AC/DC from the album shop. And I think I listened through it once. And I mean, AC/DC were a very pop-focused kind of rock band, I would say. They do make a lot of people-pleasing music, but even that had like a lot of like just albums of that era will have 2 songs that you recognize and then 8, which is kind of like, I don't know what any of this is. I don't vibe with this asshole.
I don't think I've listened to a full AC/DC album. When I say I was into it as a kid, it was like, yeah, I listened to TNT and then, Back in Black I somehow found, and then I'd be on YouTube, like just listening to a couple of the singles. Also, School of Rock features.
Oh, yeah. School of Rock
at the
probably
end.
would have done a lot for that, I would
Yeah.
have thought. This may sound mean, but AC/DC seems like one of those bands that, like, you know, when you ask people for, like, music, like, oh, where do I start with Radiohead? And people would be like, well, you know, In Rainbows is probably the most successful album, but, like, you could go back to OK Computer. If you like the slightly more experimental stuff, go with Kid A. Whereas if you go, like, oh, what AC/DC album should I get? People would be like, the best of AC/DC.
Right, truly.
Just get a compilation album of all their best singles, and it's like, yeah, not a bad idea, I don't think.
Yeah,
Which-
I'm sure their deep cuts are fine.
I'm sure
the
they're
same.
okay. I'm sure that there's Australians currently typing away upside down on their upside down keyboard saying, we're incorrect, AC/DC are national treasures. And no, I mean, saying of, like, you know, AC/DC's greatest hits, I would almost apply that to this game a little bit as well, of just, like, there's a lot of stuff in there which feels like it's the greatest hits of, like, other FPS games. Again, like, going back to the sort of XBLA-ness of it all, it is definitely a slighter experience as well, which, I mean, we can dig into that, and I don't think it's, like, such a bad thing. But just, I don't know, just kind of the scenarios they throw you in, the sort of, like, enemies you go against, the weapons that you have, none of it is new for the most part, but it's all done very well. Like, that's what I kind of mean by, like, a greatest hits collection, where it's nothing original, but all the stuff that's in there is just very polished for the most part.
Totally.
Which I think to go back to then, because, yeah, I don't even know how we can really, like, intro this for the most part.
I want to know, do you know anything about the development of this game? I would like to, I haven't looked into the context from which this was born, but it's like, why 1 to 2? Like, how did this happen?
So the main thing I can say is the fact that this game came out in 2012, so a good 5 years after the original. And the only interviews I could find was somebody had asked Starbreeze at the time, "Hey, why didn't you work on this?" And they basically said, 2K didn't contact us about this. We didn't even know this had gone into production.
Okay.
And even if they had, we couldn't work on it because we were, like, knee deep in working on Syndicate at the time for EA, which, fair enough.
Yeah.
I assume that 2K were probably looking at, like, properties that they had on their books at the time and just kind of went, hey, why don't we do another one of these games? Like, you know, the first one was I think probably what it was that 2012 was, like, really late 2000s, early 2010s was when you were starting to get that big kind of push of blogger culture, really, really, really early beginnings of, like, YouTube video essay stuff as well, where, you know, you're kind of going beyond the whole sort of review side of stuff, and people are now being a little bit more analytical about games and starting to promote stuff of, hey, this is good, which is why, like, obviously stuff like Dark Souls, you know, eventually becomes, like, a massive hit and whatever. And I remember there being quite a lot of love around the original Darkness game, of just people being like, hey, you didn't play this at the time because you probably thought, oh, it's a generic shooter. It came out in 2007, the same year as Halo 3, Bioshock, Call of Duty 4. Like, why would anybody play it?
Right.
But no, like, the fact that you didn't, you should go back and you should check it out. And so 2K might have just been looking at the currents at the time and said, why don't we do another one of these and see, like, you know, juice it a little bit? Because, yeah, there wasn't, because, like, obviously the first one only really happens because there was a film in development and Majesco gets the rights for that. And they go to Starbreeze and say, hey, you've made one of the highest rated film games of all time with Butcher Bay. Do you want to do it again with The Darkness? And they said, absolutely. Let us off the leech, coach. Whereas with this, yeah, I tried as hard as I could to find out, like, how this came together. But yeah, not a lot of writing out there. So all I can really imagine is just that there must have been something in the currents at the time that 2K said, why don't we take another punt at The Darkness? I mean, it could have even been a thing of, like, I know that, like, certain film studios will, like, I know Fox did this. They put out the Miles Teller Fantastic Four film because they wanted to keep the Fantastic Four rights. Yeah. So I don't know whether it's a similar thing with games of just like, oh, well, we still have this license, let's try and get a game out so we can keep it. But that would be weird because I know that, like, Activision had the X-Men rights for a while, which is why they can't sell the Deadpool game anymore because they no longer have that license.
Oh, okay.
But was that a case of like, oh, we get a Deadpool game out so we can keep the rights for a couple more years? But yeah, hard to say. So yeah, I don't really know how that happened. Neither do I know how it happened they didn't go with Starbreeze this time, but instead went with what I would say is probably the most like secure pair of hands you could ask for an FPS game, which is Digital Extremes. Which, do you know anything about them?
The name sounds familiar. I should have looked it up, but
no, it's fine. I'll tell you why it sounds familiar. Warframe.
Okay.
They are the people who, for the past decade, have been making and updating Warframe, which I can't remember what episode I mentioned it on, but basically it's like that and Destiny were like the first two proper live service games that basically got to be like, oh yeah, you're the only guys who can do this successfully because you were the first through the door, essentially. Mm-hmm. Destiny being obviously, from the creators of Halo comes a new science fiction world. Versus Warframe, which was very more like, that started a lot smaller with a more dedicated fan base and then eventually just grew into like an absolute juggernaut at this point. To the extent that because they have focused on Warframe for the past decade, they haven't made anything else. Right. They have got a new game coming out soon, but it is literally just Warframe, but in a fantasy setting. Like, the sales pitch is, hey guys, if you love Warframe, don't worry, this is still Warframe. We just want to try and get more people in the stew, which, science fiction, why don't we try the same thing, but for people who like fantasy rather than science fiction, I suppose. Yeah. But no, Digital Extremes are like, when like the FPS game was at its like peak, they were the guys that you went to be like, this needs like an additional bit of juice. To the extent of, and probably before this era that we kind of cover on Bullet Time, but they worked with Epic on the original version of... They worked on Unreal 1 and the first version of Unreal Tournament. So, when it comes to FPS stuff, like, they are a solid pair of hands. And then since then have, like... Basically, you inject them onto other projects to give them a bit of credibility, including a game that we've covered recently on the pod. But I don't know... I think the episode will probably go out after this one. BioShock 2. They did the multiplayer for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And people like that, right? People like that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like the multiplayer. And it's one of those things that it's like kind of going in line with this game. It should have just been like a multiplayer mode where it's like, we just took some of the maps and, now you can play it in multiplayer, whatever. Like, they could have phoned it in. These are guys that, like, whenever it comes to projects that should be phoned in, like, they just give it like 3,000%. They go above and beyond to go like, no, whatever a side course is, we're going to make that the main meal in regards to like the amount of effort that we put into it. And like the BioShock side mode very much had that. Like, you had like a hub where you could go between different matches, but also like change your specs and stuff like that. It was not quite team based, but it was like class based as well. Mm-hmm. And it was all built around the different plasmids and stuff. Really cool stuff. A game that people can't play anymore though, because all the servers are down, and the bloody re-release, they removed the multiplayer side of it as well, which sucks.
They also apparently did the Homefront multiplayer, thank God.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Which is funny to consider because Homefront 1 was made by Chaos Studios, who their first game before that was Frontlines Fuel of War, which was a pure multiplayer game anyways. So it was like, well, why wouldn't you just have them do the multiplayer on Homefront 1 as well? And it's like, we're stretched too thin. Get Digital Extremes in there. Help us out. They did make a game which I find interesting as well, and I don't know if we'll ever cover it on the podcast because it's not really a shooter, but it was called Dark Sector.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Wikipedia of their release games, and I saw that, and I'm like, oh, this shit is
Dark Sector is like that's like a Games Radar top 20 underrated 360 games banger of no one bought it because it's like, what the fuck is Dark Sector? Like, I remember like reading magazines at the time, and it's like, what's all the sales points? And it's like, well, the gameplay is really good, but we can't really sell that. So another sales point is that the main character is voiced by Lex Luthor from TV Smallville, and it's like, okay, cool. Is that a buy-in? I guess. Sure. All right.
Yeah, this cover is so boring. Like,
yep.
If I saw this as a kid, I'd be like, next. Like, I know. I'm like, oh, this is. I mean, I'm sure it's fun, but like, I would think it's like, oh, that's the boring one. I want to. Like, it's just so gray and blue, and like, it's just a guy standing there with some knives. Like, okay. Sorry.
It's got that kind of Matrix thing of like desaturated, but like. All the gradients kind of push it towards like sickly greens, like kind of digital greens and blues. But what was funny was I remember like one review at the time comparing it to Gears of War, because they were both obviously third-person games, and like then very quickly mentioning it's funny seeing what Epic has done with a third-person shoot with their game compared to these guys who had worked on the original Unreal, and like. They focused in a different direction on like Dark Sector, trying to make it like throwing in platform elements and stuff like that. I mean, the weapon that you have in it is this stupid thing called the glaive, which is like a throwing, like it's basically the boomerang from Zelda, but evil because it puts people up. So, yeah. And the funniest thing about Dark Sector is that was their original pitch for, well, Dark Sector originally started as Warframe, or like an early attempt at. Warframe is such a weird thing. That, like, the origin of that game was like the early 2000s. Looks like a fucking graphics card tech demo. And it's funny because you look at Warframe now and it's like all the character designs in this also kind of look like graphics card, like cool robots that you would put on like a Radeon box sort of thing. And yeah, that was like the initial pitch of that was that, yeah, you play as like a space cyber ninja and you go to different planets and stuff. And it's like, wow, this sounds like the most ambitious game ever made. You guys are going to have to wait a while until you're able to make this. And then Dark Sector was their initial pitch of, hey, can you let us do this idea? And then, as is the case with everything, all the like producers came in and said, this isn't going to sell, but don't worry, we're going to help you massage the concept, which is why it's now set on Earth, why it now has a gruff human white guy protagonist. Yeah, like they just completely took all the Warframe out of it to the extent of the only tease that you get that the two worlds are. So there is a tease right at the end of Dark Sector that like ties it into wider Warframe lore. And since the Warframe games have kind of like said, hey, Dark Sector is technically part of this sort of larger story, but in a bit of a weird way. And the Dark Sector logo on the O of Dark Sector is the little Lotus of fucking Warframe as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Neat.
So that's what I mean. So these guys have had ideas in the bag for a long while, but it was like, oh, we kind of need to build up our sort of war chest and cash reserves in order to then be able to do our own thing. And I think the year the Warframe comes out is their last, like, for hire project, which was the Star Trek game, which was the tie into the J.J. Abrams one, which is, like, critically panned because the thing is, like, really, like, they had to rush it out in a couple of months. The thing's, like, super...
A couple of months?
Yeah, no, like, I think the original plan was to have it out for the film.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah.
Wait, when did the Star Trek movie come out?
2012, 2013, I think.
That feels like more recent than I expected. That's kind of weird.
No, those Star Trek films are like really old now.
Well, like, but that feels newer than I expected.
Sure, yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
But yeah, so I don't know how they end up working on the darkness is what I will say. But
thank God they did.
Yeah, you know what? I think this is like the big question of the episode, but I guess why do we just say this right now of just which do you prefer, do you think? Darkness 1 or Darkness 2? Well, actually, I guess why don't we even talk about why the Darkness 2 is like, I think that's the main thing. The Darkness 2 is very different to the Darkness 1, but not in a bad way, I would say.
It is apples and oranges, right? Like these games, it's like when I was writing my notes and like my thoughts about it, it's like I don't even really want to bring up one because like I do because, you know, context and history and stuff like that. Sure. But in terms of like, it's not like this one is really, it doesn't feel like it's really iterating on the first one. Like it's doing its own thing. Like as we said in the previous episode, like One is about like atmosphere and verisimilitude and storytelling, and this one is not about that at all. It is just about getting in there and killing as many people as fast as humanly possible. And so like everything that you say about one, it's like in terms of like, let's just talk about combat, right? Like one's combat in contrast is very like clunky and slow and very simple, right? That isn't necessarily like, you know, if you're like trying to go at one as a first person shooter, you'd be like, yeah, it's kind of a lame first person shooter if that's all you cared about and like all you wanted to take from it. But as we talked about, the game is greater than the sum of its parts. And so it does more than that. So it's like, it's weird. Whereas like 2 is like, it is about the design. It is about like, how do we create this amazing combat loop in like all these different ways, you know, like all the elements come together so that shooting a man in the head and picking him up and ripping him in half and throwing half of his body at another guy and making him explode. Like that's all like tightly tuned. And so like to talk about them like as if they're trying to go for the same thing and like to compare, to create critique is like, it's kind of useless. It's like you don't need to do that for one. Like 1 is fine. Leave him alone. He wasn't trying to be that kind of guy. He's not a jock. 2 is a jock. 1 is a dark, you know, hot topic dressed nerd who just wants to brood and be sad. And then 2 is an Italian guy running 300 miles per hour and fucking knocking people into train tracks and seeing them explode.
I think the thing that I said about 1 was that like it's so well. Yeah, I guess why we started with 1 was that I was telling you all about the comic and how like endearingly stupid it was.
Yes.
It's just like, yeah, he's a fucking Don. He's a made man, but he's also Spawn kind of thing. Whereas the first game kind of uses that as like the small, like if you were to explain the first game to somebody in the smallest amount of words possible, yeah, I guess there's similar concepts, but then 1 is way more interested in just kind of like how sad the life of like Jackie Estacado is and like how very little that he has. This is where I would say that it is technically a more faithful adaptation of the comics, but it still elevates the comics beyond just because where the comics are very stupid and very like, you know, Rob Liefeld 90s kind of edgelord stuff. This does devil in it, but then it also just has kind of like the confidence to pull it off in an interesting way. Like, I think, I mean, the big thing that I guess like it does kind of tie in nicely with the beginning of this game of just the fact of, this is a sequel to the last game in the fact of Jackie is now the fucking, he's the capo, he's the head of the mafia kind of thing, which is reflected in the last game. When he was talking to the player directly, or I guess to Jenny in the dark rooms, he was standing up in his leather trench coat like he was doing Bill Hicks style, you know, storytelling comedy.
Yeah.
In this, he sits in a fucking throne smoking a cigar like a king.
Yeah, and you start the game off in, I guess, your restaurant. I don't know how that works, but and then you're in this big mansion. You know, it's like way over the top.
Oh god, yeah. Like the beginning of this game is very much like, as you were kind of saying about like how in the first Darkness game you could imagine people being like, oh, the shooting in this is shit kind of thing, because that's how they're going at it. The beginning of this game feels like the payoff to the people who, quote, suffered through the first Darkness one of, oh, well, you know, you're the king of kings now, so, you know, we're going to recreate the Copacabana scene, one from fucking Goodfellas, where you're walking into the restaurant and everyone's shaking your hands. And then you sit down at a table with women with women with big breasts.
It's
and you go,
so
this
juvenile. Like, I mean,
it's
and
great.
I guess Jackie doesn't like it, so it's like, that's fine. Like, I guess, like, I feel like that opening scene. I listened to the Transformers episode and you were talking about oneers and stuff, and you brought up the Goodfellas one. I was like, oh, you know what? That maybe is kind of like the beginning of this game, but it's not like they really like, no one interacts with you. You just kind of look at some people who are eating food. Like it's not that it's not that big of a moment. It feels like they could have maybe done a little more to show your status and Jackie's I don't know. I guess we don't know how Jackie fully is feeling. Like, is he like...
No.
Is he resigned to it? I mean, with the girls, it kind of feels like that. It's like, oh, like he gets to have everything he wants, but without Jenny, what does it all matter? But like, you know, he's still doing it and he still cares about, you know, the people around him. So... the first note that I had written on my document the moment that I started the game up and he's sitting in a throne and he's doing like, so it's not the same voice actor as, so that's the thing as well. Yeah.
None of the creative team from the original are back. Basically, the only person who came back to do Darkness 2 was Mike Patton. It's the voice of the Darkness. They were like, we can't get rid of him. He's the only guy who can do growls and spooky voices, so we got to get him into the booth. But the guy who plays Estacado in this is Brian Bloom, who, again, going with the whole sort of like digital extremes of the kings of like never phoning in an FPS game. Brian Bloom is like, for the past 1,000 years, he's been like grunt voices in every single FPS games.
Oh, really?
Up until he was able to basically like promote himself to full-time voice man of... He's the voice of BJ Blazkowicz in the new Wolfenstein games.
God damn. That's...
Yeah.
He's got range. Like...
He's like, that's the thing. Yeah, he can do... he's also like Marvel's go-to voice actor for anytime they do a Captain America game now. Like he was Cap in Marvel Midnight Suns and the Avengers game as well, I think. So no, he's like... He's the guy that you... And yeah, he's got range. Like, I didn't find his... Because my worry going into, like, especially the beginning of him sitting in the chair, and it was the thing that we mentioned in the last episode of just, like, they managed to avoid the whole kind of, like, you know, just doing the Mafia voice, say, pizza pasta, fuck you kind of thing.
Yeah.
That first scene does start to dip into it a little bit. And it... Oh, yeah.
I think all of the mob characters are just cranked up to, you know, spaghetti and pizza levels, you know.
To pizza pasta spaghetti levels. But to the extent of, and the first note that I had written down was, my thought was the traumatic experience of the first game, losing Jenny, killing, like, Uncle Paulie, everyone that he loved being affected by this, basically turned him into a cartoon character of just, like, I need to sever any kind of emotions that I may have, and I just need to present myself as, like, the exaggerated version of what people think I am. And my assumption is that reflected in the fact that the game is also a fucking cartoon to the extent of it's cel-shaded as well.
Oh, yeah. It is Borderlands, it is 13, you know.
It's funny, actually. I didn't make the Borderlands connection until literally before starting this episode. I made a bunch of notes and I quickly looked at what other people were saying. And then I went, oh yeah, 2K own fucking Borderlands, don't they? So they probably... Digital Extremes were like, hey, can we borrow the shader? Sure, here you go. But the thing it reminded me more of was Telltale's The Walking Dead as well. And I think that was just mostly because of the fact that, especially when returning characters come in, they look like... They took like kind of very sort of mid-poly character models, which might have looked good at the beginning of the 360 era. Don't look so hot now, but if you throw a cell shading on them, you go, oh, okay, that's passable. That looks like a Robert Kirkman comic book, I suppose.
Yeah.
But when you say with the mooks that you're surrounded by, I feel like that's kind of where the cell shading stuff works the best. Like, I guess we haven't got to him yet, but the occultist guy that you find who knows about the Jimmy, his design is like a perfect fit for that. Versus, they bring back Aunt Sarah and Butch, and they look. Aunt Sarah especially looks like Richard Linklater's Waking Life. Like, it looks like they took a photo of him. It looks like they took the model from the first game, put the fucking cutout filter over here in Photoshop and let that be that.
You know, I didn't find Aunt Sarah that, like, uncanny or weird, Butcher definitely. He looks kind of
Butch
weird.
10,000% does though. Jimmy the Grape also kind of has a bit of that.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
I mean, he's kind of uncanny looking in the first one, so it sort of works. But then all the new guys that they make, like Vinny and Jimmy and stuff,
right,
do fit the art style a little bit more. When you get to the fucking villains in this as well, like, I have no idea how they would have made them look in the first game, is kind of what I was thinking with that. Like, I mean, that's maybe a thing of it as well, is that you said about you don't really want to compare it to the first one, but it's obviously so hard to do. But it is like, this is the Darkness 2. Like, the buy-in is you played the Darkness 1.
No, I mean, we can compare. It's just like, I guess like at the end of the day, like me, it'd be like personally, I'm going to be like, I go to these for different things, so I'm not going to like hold stuff against one or the other. You know, that's kind of
absolutely.
But like, we can definitely compare and contrast.
The big conflict that I have with this game is that I like both games a lot, but they're completely different to one another.
Yeah.
And I would say that maybe that is the only mark against this game is that, like, if you were to go in expecting not just this is only a story sequel to the first game.
Right.
Tonally, mechanically, whatever, nothing in common with the first game.
I mean, you shoot guns.
Yeah, it's an FPS. Yeah. That's the only, the verbiage of you pull right trigger for right gun, left trigger for left gun. That is the only thing that is carried over. Even the tentacles don't work the same in this.
Right. Yeah, like I remember when I must have seen like some screenshots a long time ago and feeling sort of like, and this is before I'd even finished the first one, but I felt kind of a betrayal. I was like, what did they do to my boy? Like my beautiful
my boy.
Yeah, like I just thought the first one had such a unique look and like, you know, that style, that dark, gritty, you know, kind of
urban realism kind of look.
Exactly. Like I really liked that, and to see this one do this, it was definitely, I guess, what you were saying before. Like it felt like they made a mobile version of the game. You're like, oh no, they've cheapened it. You know, like that was, and so that's why I never went back, because like just based on the looks, it was kind of like, and I'd have to go back to like reaffirm this, but I remember like playing Assassin's Creed 1 and seeing that. And then seeing 2 kind of take it in a more sort of stylized, like I feel like Assassin's Creed 1 has like better graphics objectively than 2, you know, in like a detail and sort of kind of way. Obviously 2 is a better game overall, but I just remember being like, why? I want it to look kind of like I don't know, whatever kind of movie that the first one is going, almost like a Kingdom of Heaven kind of look to it.
It does have a very kind of Ridley Scott got really into sort of shooting on digital at that time. So even though it's like a quote like ancient swords and sandals historical epic, it has this very kind of cold and digital look to it.
Right. And so when 2 came, it was like colorful and bright. I was like, no, what? My look. But then, you know, they each have their place, and I've grown up.
Oh, sure.
But that's what it kind of reminded me of, is like a company or a designers being like, let's revamp this. But in this case, it makes sense, and I'm glad they did it.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I'm now trying to think of like other games that have that kind of lateral sequel in regards to it isn't a superior version of the first one. It's more like they kind of took a different direction with it and being like, well, I can't say it's better or worse. It's different is kind of the thing. I mean, the problem is that my head's going at Ico and Shadow of the Colossus, but Shadow of the Colossus isn't a sequel to Ico. It's just the game that they made afterwards.
Right.
But like, obviously they're in the same world and kind of have similar sort of verbiage throughout. But it's like even like Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine. It's like you couldn't call that like that is a marked improvement in a bunch of different mechanics and the like. But like. Yeah, this is such an odd... Yeah, just the Darkness 2, as it exists, it is just such an odd beast of just, like... Why is it... Like, it is so different to the first, yet it does still feel like it does have to pay homage to the first in regards to not only do Butch and Aunt Sarah come back, but also that kind of... The thing that you mentioned in the last episode of you press the X button to lock into conversations with people, and it looking like Morrowind, where they're stood in place, and they, you know, it's all the character animations and the faces, like the first game does as well.
Yeah.
Like, and even the fact of how it kind of, how Jenny looks and how she's integrated into the story is very much playing off the first, despite the fact that Jenny's writing in this is very different to the first game. Not in a worst way, just different is what I will say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even know where to... I mean, we started talking about kind of the intro, which... Okay, I'll say this of just... Okay, so it's a different developer, and it's like... In the last one, we were trying to figure out, okay, so Starbreeze, obviously, they're building on what they did in Butcher Bay of, you know, this kind of pseudo-photorealistic look, kind of urban gritty realism, playing with light and shadows and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, but what's Digital Extremes' thing? And then you go, well, they're kind of the masters of like making a entry level or kind of like a crowd-pleasing FPS game, to the extent of I was like playing... in the first game, when I was playing that, I was just kind of being washed over by how much I was enjoying it just from like a gameplay standpoint. This, my analyst hat was on like fucking tight, because I was just like, oh, this is such a well-constructed intro. Oh, these arenas are really well done. They're pushing for all these different things. Again, to go with the whole like XBLA-ness of it all, this feels like it could be somebody's first FPS game in regards to the intro is a complete on-rails section where you don't move your character until like a couple of minutes in, but they teach you how to shoot a gun, how to aim the gun, how to dual wheel and do stuff with that. Then when you get outside, it's all corridors, so you don't have to think about like areas any larger than they are, as they introduce all the darkness powers that you have, and then you let off the leash. And then as you go through the different levels, it's like this kind of concertina accordion thing of they're constantly changing the shapes of levels, making them larger and smaller, narrower and wider. And you're like again, you see the Matrix code, but you don't go like, oh, the fact that I can see this makes me go, oh, I'm better than this game because I can see what they're doing. You just get like really impressed by how well it's made.
Right. And you're, well, I mean, I played on like hard and Dawn.
Yes.
And so like you need to read the game design-wise to be like, okay, how am I supposed to play this? And how am I supposed to work within these levels? So yeah, like you notice it, but it's because you need to. And it's like, I appreciate that I can understand it and it's readable and very playable. Yeah.
On the smallest level, the thing that I got impressed by was the fact of, well, I guess saying I was impressed by it is maybe a bit of a stretch, but like, when you get to like level load points where they ask you to rip off a door, and you do this a couple of times, and like, you play video games long enough, you go, oh, well, they did that because they have to hide a loading screen kind of thing. My thing was that, oh, they make you rip off doors so a player remembers, oh yeah, this isn't a regular FPS game. I also have darkness powers, and I should be thinking all the way along, I can use these to like help me out. And I mean, maybe let's talk about the okay, I think that is like the big thing about this game, because we can talk about the plot and sort of, we can kind of speedrun through it, because as I said right at the beginning of the episode, this game is less than 4 hours long. This isn't even like a weekend rental. You could just smash this out as quickly as you wanted to. Really.
I played this game twice in preparation, and that was fine. You know, like that was easy to do.
Yeah. No, speaking of which, did you try any of the Vendetta stuff as well?
I tried like one part of one of them, and I was like, oh, this will be fun, but I didn't want to like cloud my
That's fair.
Remembrance of the main campaign, because that happens to my brain. So I was like, I'll keep that for later.
Okay, yeah, we'll save talking about the Vendetta stuff at the end, because I think that might be an interesting contrast with like, just, you know, a game this short, how did they kind of extend it out? Because obviously games at this time, they were like, oh, we need to curve secondhand sales. You know, how are we going to do that? But yeah, this is a short campaign, but like, there's no hubs this time. You don't have to ride the train in this game.
So sad.
Funny. You do go to the subway once though.
That's true. That's true.
And they turn it into a little combat arena, and I wondered whether there was a joke of just like, you know, again, winking to the kind of the edgelords who played the first game, who were like, oh, why can't I fucking shoot up the subway? Kind of. It's
Right.
like, hey, here you go,
Let
guys.
loose.
You can do this in the first level.
Yeah.
There you go. Again, so there is it's not a hub, but there is a level that you keep returning back to,
Yeah.
which is you got your freaking mansion where you can go to different rooms and talk to people. But there's no side content anymore. There's no like newspaper, there's no letters to send, there's no like phone calls to make and stuff like that. It is a purely linear beginning to end experience, which again, I guess of games of that time, people might see that as kind of a lesser thing. My whole thing is, well, if the main course is good enough, that's fine. I don't need the extra stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like this is a lesser experience. And I will say, for the most part, the main course of this is still pretty good, even if it's mostly shooting. But they do a lot of stuff to make the shooting interesting.
When I cook food, I don't bother making sides because I'm lazy and I just want to eat the main thing and worry about making that good. So I get it. You know, I appreciate this game for that.
Yeah, it's the difference between like going to Disneyland and feeling like you have to do all the kind of extra stuff while you're there versus just like when you go to random towns and it's just like, oh yeah, we just have a roller coaster here. Yeah, that's just the town. That's just the town Ferris wheel. Don't worry about it. It's just like, okay, cool, fine. But I'm fine with that. If that's your idea of amusement, that works. As long as it's good, that works for me. Which is what this is for the most part. Of just. Yeah, the shooting in this is really fun, but to the extent of like, I like the shooting and I like the shooting and the combat stuff in this more than the first one. But again, as he said, that isn't why I like the first one.
Right.
The first one has way much more stuff going on. But if they're focusing on the shooting here, that's fine. I think the shooting here is like probably some of the best I've had, like of any of the bullet time stuff that I've played. This is like on par with, say. Well, this feels better than Time Splitters for a start, which is quite a fucking shock. But again, you play it on PC or, mouse and keyboard or controller, still feels pretty good. This is like top tier stuff.
Can
and
I
then
make
you
a
throw
bold
in,
statement?
Go for it.
I think this is my favorite Call of Duty style game. And I think it's better than Titanfall 2.
Wow. Okay.
In terms of like the combat and how it plays out, like I prefer this style because I am a big new Doom fan. And I think this game somehow predicted or these designers knew how to do the push forward combat of those future games now, right? Or in 2012, like 4 years before Doom 2016. Like I'm a big fan of especially Doom Eternal. I really like that game. I've played it on Nightmare. Like I really like, how that game feels and all the stuff about that game. And so obviously this isn't like the same because it is working off of what I would say is like a Call of Duty kind of framework, but it takes that framework and pushes you to like actually not just, hide under cover and just shoot in a target practice kind of, scenario. It's like you're forced to move, you're forced to like use all the mechanics at your disposal, and it's just fucking great and also really good game feel and all that. I think I was surprised how much I loved playing this game.
I mean, I think that speaks to the fact that you played it twice. And again, like I think I replayed a few levels after finishing it the first time as well, just to get the feel of it. And I mean, I don't think you're wrong because I think with Titanfall 2, the magic of that game is mostly the levels and like the scenarios that you're thrown into. Like, if that game had like the combat feel of this, it would be like if somebody asked you, hey, I want to play a single FPS game to completely understand the genre, you would give them that for the most part.
You're saying Titanfall?
I think Titanfall 2, but with a control scheme of this, I guess.
Oh, I see.
Although I guess I mean, 2 kind of also has like the parkour stuff to it as well.
I think Titanfall 2 has really good mobility, right? Like that's where the expression comes in that. And maybe I'm just I have a hard time like balancing the shooting and the mobility in that one. But I prefer this game where it's more about like your combat options. Whereas like Titanfall 2, that feels more like you've got your standard FPS guns, but it's about like moving about the level and making sure you're staying far away from it, like not getting too close. That's kind of a Call of Duty thing, right? It's like you have hit scan enemies who are shooting at you, and you have not recharging, what kind of health? What do you call that? Regenerative health?
Oh, regenerating health. Yeah.
And so I feel like that gives that game more of the Call of Duty defensive feel to me, unless like you're super fast at headshotting everyone in a room, I guess, and like can have speed run the game or something.
Sure.
Whereas this, because it has health involved, and you get health by killing people, like you are just it's just like, get in there, boy, go and murder those people.
Eternal, I think, is an interesting comparison because, again, like, I really liked Doom 2016 when it came out, but I've always found Eternal a little bit kind of overwhelming just in regards to...
Oh, it is.
the expectations of it is. The expectations that they have for you to juggle stuff. This is like a nice Goldilocks zone of... is the step up from something like 2016, but it doesn't ask you to rodeo as much as Eternal. And I would also say it's less than 4-hour runtime probably also helps it in a way that Eternal out of the gate is like, it plays like the end of 2016 and then only steps up from there, and it's like, what the fuck kind of thing.
Yeah, that's like 12-15 hours of all of that, of the hardest level of Doom 2016. Yeah. No, it can be a lot.
No. Whereas this is cool. And again, if you were to read it on the surface of just like, well, what's the difference between the darkness powers? You'd think this was a lesser game because they've taken away black holes until you unlock those,
right.
but they do it in a slightly different way. They've removed picking up physics objects. They've simplified that as well. Dark Lane stuff they've also massively simplified, but I guess we'll get into that in a second.
Yeah.
So it's the only abilities that you have are whips and picking stuff up, and you go, oh, that seems less like, that's less strategy.
No.
I think that was the thing that was in my head as well, is that like, because the combat in the first game, I would say it's more about kind of the strategy of like, how do you approach situations, and like, when we were talking about using the Darklings all the time, you just kind of spam them towards the end of the game to sort of clear house.
Yeah.
And then you start to, you use your darkness powers wherever you can, like the black holes and stuff, to just kind of wipe through. It becomes the, I can't remember what the term it was that you said, but it was like the highest, like,
first order optimal strategy. The foo strategy.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Which, like, you just start going through the motions with that. Or at least with this, it's kind of like, the inputs are, quote, simpler, but it feels like they're way more expressive.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I think the scoring system certainly drives that as well, because there is just fun in, like, picking up a pool cue, throwing it through a guy and getting, like, skewered bonus. Or, like, picking up a car door and using that as mobile cover is, like, just all the little opportunities that they have of, like, using stuff in the environment. And again, like, I mentioned this on, like, every episode of Bullet Time, but I always love the Jackie Chan thing of, like, he goes into a room and he turns it into, like, a kind of everything becomes a combat, like, every prop becomes, like, a combat opportunity. This has a little feeling of that, of just, like, hey, pick up a car door, or, like, hey, pick up a thing and, like, throw it, or, like, hey, pick up other guys and throw them.
Mm-hmm.
It's really neat, and the strategy is then kind of a little bit more focused rather than being like, because there were powers in the first game, like the fucking stupid electric gun and stuff that you never used as a result. Whereas in this, it's kind of like, no, let's just focus on maybe one or two things and just polish them to a mirror machine. Let's fill the world full of these little reactive objects, and like, where the first game the reactivity was like, in speaking to a guy who's smoking outside and you hear like a little bit about the world, the reactivity here is more about like, yeah, I'm going to pick up like a fucking box of newspapers and just beam it at a guy's head. And then I'm going to, try and pull off a double headshot and stuff. It's good. And I would say that, like, gun to my head, if I had to choose between like, well, which game would I prefer just on a purely gameplay level, it would be this.
Oh,
for the most part.
I mean, that's easy. But again, we don't go to the first one to shoot people. We go to watch To Kill a Mockingbird and feel dread.
You know, that's maybe why they never did a PC port of the first one as well. It's just because of the fact that they'd have to relicense all of that stuff.
I don't even think they don't even acknowledge it in the script. So you could just put any, fake movie in that. I mean, I guess that would involve coding.
You'd have to make something, wouldn't you?
You'd have to make something, yeah. Just download a YouTube video or something and put it on there. It's fine.
Yeah, just fill it full of Tom Scott videos. There you go. They're sitting on the sofa and they're watching a Jacob Geller video. They're watching the Design for Violence one. That'd be fun.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Versus this one where you never sit down to watch a television. There's never any moment of
weird.
Again, at this point,
actually,
Jackie,
there is a TV at one point, but we'll get to that.
Oh, is there? I wasn't paying attention hard enough. What was on the TV?
Two men that you have to decide the fates of.
Oh, okay, never mind. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah, I guess you do look at the TV at one point.
Just being cheeky. Just being a little cheeky.
It's being a little scamp. You've been a little scamp like the Darkling in this game,
yes.
which, again, changed from the last one where you could, at the end of the game, you basically had an army of these guys.
Right.
In this one, you only get one. And much like how this game develops out your darkness powers to be like, okay, we're only going to have two, and we're going to flesh them out as much as possible. The Darkling guy in this is also that, to the extent of he's a little character. He's a little British punk who wears a woolly hat, which is cute. And then, you can pick him up and you can beam him at enemies, which is cool. He can he'll fight for you in certain situations. He can throw guns and ammo for you, or props to throw at shit.
Besides in the boss fights, does he in a normal fight, does he bring you stuff?
Doesn't he bring you a micro Uzi at one point as well?
Oh, me. Yeah, I don't remember.
No, he does do stuff. And then the other thing is that occasionally you use him for stealth sections, which they use to kind of break the pace up a bit. Now, I know when journalists at the time hated shit like this and saying oh, I just want to do the thing that's. I mean, I guess they're still saying it now because the new Spider-Man games have stealth sections in those. But I think that the problem with those is that usually they go on a bit too long and they're kind of a bit too mean. Yeah. I never had an issue with the stealth stuff in this. I thought it was cute.
I guess on a replay, it's I'm trying to just get to the good stuff. And so it does feel come on. But first time through, I was oh, this is kind of neat. You can knock down barrels and take a guy out. And, it's there's not enough friction to be it's not deep, but it's also not bothersome. It's a fun little side activity that, and you get to, I don't know, it's kind of fun being a little gremlin, Yeah,
and you get to eavesdrop on people. And slash people's throats. And you just walk up to people and just do canned animation kills, which is fine. Again, very much a game of its time. But no, so rather than having an entire army of little gremlin guys, you just get one and they just decide, oh, let's make them a little character. And it's cool, okay, that's different. But it's not better, it's not worse, it's different. Yeah.
And he first time you meet him, does he piss on a guy or fart on a guy?
I wrote this note. Again, that's how you know this. That's how you know Starbreeze were nowhere near this game. Is that there's a fucking fart joke, and Jackie goes, "What the fuck was that?" And the guy goes, "I don't know, mate. I'm from your head, so you did that." And
it's okay, monkey. I like to shit and piss.
Oh, I love to fart on people. And it's great.
And he'll do it
we're
in
combat
Minions
territory with this game.
Yeah, right. He'll do it randomly too. It's not just that one time. You can catch him pissing and farting.
Well, no, exactly. You'll look around the environment. Obviously, how they program the game is that they have kind of, they'll tag an object with imp opportunity, and he'll be sitting on a barrel, or he'll be pissing in a fountain or something like that. So
yeah.
They do the work.
It's cute.
So that's what I mean. In regards to just, you have less to do in this game, but the less amount of stuff is way more kind of expressive and robust, to the extent of as you said, I the combat in this is beyond fucking bullet time territory of I would put the combat in this on par with say Titanfall 2 and Doom Eternal in regards to all-time current the three kings of great feeling FPS games.
Right.
Of you could hand this to somebody and go, there we go. This is why FPS games are good. And they're wow, this fucking rocks. And it does. But then on the other end of the fucking system, it's just kind of like, well, yeah, there's never any moment where you sit down on the sofa and watch a film or do like, you know, there's apart from the characters that they bring back, like Jimmy the Grape and Butch and stuff like that, everyone is just a mobster in this, apart from the cult guys.
Right, and they're just, I mean, you only have the main villain who says anything. I guess there's the little Peevish is his name, I think.
There's two guys. There's Peevish and there's Bragg.
Oh, Bragg, right? Yeah, yeah. Okay, I forgot about Bragg too. Bragg's just like he's just a crass. He's basically a mobster with dark magic. He's just like, I'm gonna rip your aunt's tits off and shove them down the throat. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, she's a nice looking girl, Jackie boy. Shame I didn't meet her when she wasn't there, kind of thing.
She must have gave good BJs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, girls with lip rings must give good head, right? That's what he says. Okay, I forgot about him, but yeah, like they're not particularly characterized either. Like, I guess.
Oh god, no, like that's what I mean. Like nobody has like the thing that I kept talking about in the last episode of just like, you know, oh, this is about like the decay of the empire,
right.
and just all these old guys were just like, look, Jackie, I didn't want to be in this life and I'm going to die a sad old man, but that doesn't mean you have to. Whereas everybody in this is like, you know, they're like the guys that the Punisher would mow down in one of his TV shows kind of thing. There's nothing, they have no internal life. There's no characterization to them apart from, hey, you know, she had a great pair of tits, am I right? Kind of thing.
Hey, look at that rack to your right, and then you look right, and it's a plant, and then you have to look left to see the tits.
Yeah.
That's
God. Oh yeah, I forgot about that in the beginning.
That's the tutorial for looking. Is look at this pair
and do you know
of
what my
tits.
favorite thing is as well? And we touched upon this in the first one a little bit of just kind of like how it's, you know, it's that cool thing of just like you have the world of the mafia, but they have like no idea how to deal with the dark, like this supernatural entities like so beyond them. This is in this where you get to the end of the first level where you've gone through all the tutorial things of like, you know, the corridors, and then like it opens up and then it shrinks down, and then you get to the so the darkness appears, and then you see Vinny, who's like, he got shot in the gut but he's all right after that, and he just goes, hey Vin, you think oh Jackie, your thing's back.
Yeah. Oh, hey, look at that. Isn't that nice? Anyway, let's go kill.
And like Tony being like, hey, good thing you got your thing back, Jackie. And to the extent that the main bad guy, when he kidnaps you the first time, which I guess we'll get to when we talk about like levels and plot stuff, he basically says every criminal in New York City knows that like they think you have a demon inside of you. And he's like, oh, is this just an open thing that like the fucking underworld of New York City knows that there's a guy out there who has supernatural powers. Okay.
Yeah, that is very comic booky. You know, that's where that influence comes in.
They are full, like, that's the thing. Starbreeze wanted to try and aim for some kind of like it obviously is not realistic because of what happens in that game, but they're trying to aim for some kind of like realism to make the drama more palpable. No, this is pure comic book territory, but in a way that's, I mean, it's pulpy. Like, it's fun as a result, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
I think something I mean, maybe it's too early, but I wanted to comment sort of on maybe the flattening of Jackie as a character. I feel like there's some characterization that, you know, to contrast with the first one, and maybe the first one just didn't go into it, but like when Jackie talks about his and Jenny's past, it makes Jackie feel like in the first game it felt like he's just a nice guy who happens to be getting by via murdering people, but in this one it feels like he kind of grew up as, you know, like a little bit of an asshole, you know, like he's always been kind of dark, and then now he got to fully express it, you know, like that's why I like Jackie in the first one, because it felt like he was sort of didn't like fit in fully with that lifestyle, or it was just kind of one of, as we sort of talked about, like his destiny, or what his fate was. He was fated to be this, you know, with Uncle Paulie forcing him into that life. Like this was kind of inevitable. Whereas like with this one, the way he talks in the level transition, throne monologues, it feels more like, oh yeah, he's just been kind of like, he's been a rough little bastard the whole time, and now it's just, yeah, he's got like more guns to do stuff with. I don't know. It's
kind of like how. No, I do. I like it's kind of like in Metal Gear 3, Metal Gear Solid 3, where you meet Big Boss when he's still Naked Snake, and he's just like, you see all these dimensions to him, and like, he's odd, and like, he has his eccentricities, but then he does generally get his heart broken like multiple times throughout, until the extent that he just basically decides being a human being is really hard. I'd rather be I'd rather have I'd rather just be like a hollow legend.
Yeah.
And then by the time, which means that when you get to him in Metal Gear 2 for the fucking Game Boy or whatever, for the MSS, where it's like, well, we can't write, like, Kojima basically built in this thing of just like, well, how did he turn into a cartoon character in that game? Where it's like, well, Kojima, he's like that because he didn't have any like, that console had that PC had like 12 kilobits of RAM. Like, you couldn't write real characters. They had to be broad stereotypes. He's like, no, I'm going to write a story where somebody becomes so broken at the end of it they have to become a broad stereotype. And it's like, okay, cool, fine. It's a similar thing here where, yeah, like, his changes to the character in this I don't particularly like, of just because like the crassest thing that you get from Jackie in the first one is they say that the subway's scary. Well, how about being in a taxi with Crazy Abdul kind of thing? But and this, again, maybe to out myself a little bit, which I did the other day as well by accidentally calling Bernie Mac Cedric the Entertainer. But because the pizza pasta pepperoni is so strong out of the gate in this, I couldn't, like, I don't know whether you do this when you play games or whatever, but like when you're kind of like, there hasn't been like any music or like talking for a while, you'll just kind of sit there talking to yourself and just doing the stupid voice to entertain yourself. And like I was doing that with Jackie, and I just had him saying like fucking random Comtown bits of just like, oh, what's the stupidest thing that Jackie could say kind of thing in that voice.
Like you're playing the game, killing people.
Yeah,
like
as I'm playing the game,
shit.
I'm just kind of like mocking Jackie as I'm playing the game in this stupid voice. Yeah. And like there was a bit where I was just like, oh, I went into the restaurant and I saw a waitress, she had the biggest tits I've ever seen. There's a fucking scene
that is it
before you go to Aunt Sarah's funeral where he goes, I went to this cafe once. Waitress there, the biggest tits you've ever seen. And it's like,
you predicted that?
Oh, come on. Were they on the wavelength? Were they also taking the piss out of Jackie with this game?
That's impressive that you just threw that out there and then you manifested it.
That I manifested the writing of this game of, Jackie just being this boorish mafia asshole of just like, in this world, this killer be... Yeah, like, what's the thing that he says about, like, when I got two guns in my hand, it feels like an action movie. But when I look at these other guys, they ain't an action movie. It's a horror movie because I'm the goddamn monster kind of thing. It's like, again, he has fun in the first. Like, again, if you were cynical, you could say, oh, the first game's kind of like that as well. He says like a lot of just sort of empty-headed bull. It's Joe Rogan style, like pills of wisdom. Yeah. But in this, it's like way more exaggerated. And again, I don't know whether that was just a thing of they wanted to make it more like the comics, or they were like looking at the threads of the first game and going, well, if this guy's like completely fucking, Arrested Development trauma from what happened in the first game, of course he turned himself into a fucking cartoon character and speak like that. So, yeah. I mean, but the thing is, it works for the game, I guess.
Right. Yeah, no, I can't get mad because they're
that's
doing
the thing,
such different things. Yeah, but it's just like it's like, oh man, I like the old Jackie, but that Jackie just wouldn't work in this world. Like you can't.
Oh God, no! Like,
you can't have a sensitive Jackie.
Yeah, like if you like, as I always think of the thing of like, well, worlds are. If you've written a fictional story, there's a fictional world in it. Ultimately, it has to be the extension of like whoever the surrogate for that story is, whether that's the main character or whatever. Yeah. And so if Jackie is like this, then the world also has to reflect that, or vice versa. Yeah. If the world of the game is like this because they want to make it more of a fun FPS game with like going to all these fun locations, and let you live the life of being a mafia head, then yeah, of course Jackie has to be like that versus sad Trent Reznor like he was in the first one.
Well, the Wolfenstein games kind of maybe sort of tread a line of sensitive main character in a ultra-violent world.
Which makes sense considering those were made by, because obviously Starbreeze then becomes, those guys go on to form Machine Games. So yeah, they're still playing in the same,
they love
like, again,
sad guys.
that's the idea, but further developed.
Yeah.
This is, and I guess I don't want to like speak ill of Digital Extremes because again, they've done Gears of Warframe now. Those games, I imagine, are up to their, like, there's probably lore in that game that's longer than multiple versions of the Bible and the Encyclopedia Britannica, like, in regards to storytelling. And I'm sure they've got a lot of cool character stuff in there. Digital Extremes don't really strike me as people who are interested in telling, like, well-rounded characters. Not that that's a problem.
No, yeah.
But, yeah.
I want to also, in terms of story in The Darkness 2, all of the collectibles you get do have a lot of lore. I don't know if you ever went into the room. Johnny Powell will, like, for 2 or 3 minutes for each item, describe what it is and its dark past. That also reminds me of the newer Doom games because those have really long lore logs for some reason.
Oh, yeah.
So it predated that as well. Like needlessly long lore explanations in your fast FPS game that you just want to go kill people in.
But that's the thing. It feels like because the hub of his mansion is so small now, it doesn't feel like you really want to stick there that long.
Right.
It's about the fact that it is full of funny details. Like, do you like the fact that he has a fucking katana collection? Like he's a 13-year-old.
I didn't even notice that. Is that in the bedroom?
Yeah, in his office he has he has 2 flags, which is like one's an American flag and one is like the flag of Mexico, I think.
Would that not be Italy?
Well, I mean, Italy would make more sense. I mean, it's green and red, so yeah, it probably is Italy. But it has like a crest in the middle of it, which is why I thought it was Mexico.
Oh, interesting.
But I don't know. Yeah. So below his American flag and Italy / Mexico flag, he also has a sweet katana collection.
Fucking nice, bro. Fucking nice.
Fucking sick, bro. His bedroom has like a cool like walk-in hot tub as well. Fucking sick.
And a waterfall.
Yeah, and a waterfall as well. He has a bar in his, and again, like the mansion itself and again, like maybe a smarter, no, not a smart development. Maybe if they wanted to, they could have dug into this a little bit. But it is funny that like Jackie goes from like, you know, Jenny's apartment where it looks like a real apartment. The finale of that game is then go to fucking Uncle Paulie's compound where it's gaudy, tacky as fuck Greek statues and like, you know, red capes and paintings all over the place. Oh, and what's Jackie's mansion? Oh, it's that, but it's also a penthouse apartment in fucking downtown Manhattan, so you can see the skyline. Like, he's become the tacky, gaudy, like, mobster as well. Down to the fact of what he's wearing. He's just, like, constantly wearing, like, oh yeah, with the finest suits kind of thing.
Yeah, he's wearing, like, a fluffy shirt, it feels. Is that...
yeah, he is. He's wearing like a ruffled shirt, like a romantic.
Right, kind which is it's kind of sexy. He looks pretty sexy. This character model.
I mean, his hair's sexy. I mean, his hair's got like because in the first game he has the school shooter hair, but in this one he's like, hey, can you go through it with the fix? Can you add like a little bit of volume? Yeah, he's using Head and you know, he's using like Tresemme and whatever now, like proper studio shampoo because it's like, you know, fluffy and wavy now, which is great.
Oh yeah, he looks real good, and you can see him in reflections if you look in mirrors. I was kind of impressed by that.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's just like a double of the room, but yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it's 10,000% is they're doing it through duplication, especially with like kind of a stylized art direction with that. It'd probably be the easiest way of doing it.
Right.
Doesn't the Darkness one also have like rooms with reflections in them as well? Or
the first one does. Yeah, there's a bathroom, I think, maybe one of the first bathroom.
Oh yeah, literally the bathroom that you go into is just like Crazy Eddie or whatever his name is in there. Yeah.
It's just when I emulated that one, the mirrors didn't work so good, so I kind of forgot about that.
Okay, no, I think in the PS3 version the mirrors do it, but they're like really low res.
Oh, I'm sure.
So. Oh yeah.
Oh, I had like black stuff on the screen. Anyway, continue.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was glitched.
God. Oh, I was gonna say, so how did it? So Here's another thing: is that if people ask me, well, which Darkness game should I play, I would just say 2 because you can just buy 2. 2's on Steam,
probably for $5 or less dollars, and you can run it on probably anything post
if you
2050.
If you own a computer that came out before Trump was president, you would be able to run this game pretty easily, I would think.
Yeah.
So I think you're fine, basically. And again, keyboard and mouse support, controller support. It's all like, it just works out of the box, like 0 issues whatsoever. You can run it in windowed. You can. I didn't run it in ultra wide, so I couldn't check if it does like properly scale or whatever. But I'm sure it would if you throw a patch at it. Like, just works out of the box. And yeah, as you said, you can get this for like $5 now, and it's like, for that price point is fucking ridiculous. Like,
yeah.
Again, if you'd bought this at full price, I could see you maybe being annoyed that it's only less than 4 hours plus like extra content. No, for $5 though, it's like the best FPS game ever made at that price point. So
right.
No complaints.
Yeah, it's interesting that like I feel like first person shooters don't have that replayability, like, you know, like a Devil May Cry or something like that. It's like we don't really have,
which is
FPS
funny considering this is full of you know, you get point values like a character action game. Like, it tells you how many points you get in like fighting through guys.
Honestly,
but yeah, like no, FPS don't really have that, do they?
Right. I was almost disappointed with the system. I was kind of hoping there would be like a combo or like a, you know, continuing your kill streak sort of system.
Oh yeah,
because I feel like that would have, I mean, I think the game incentivizes you enough to move and to use your, you know, all of the powers at your disposal pretty well. But I think it could have like gone the extra mile and like been like, all right, you gotta like do different stuff. You know, you can't like repeat and just get only headshots and stuff like that, which like is sort of the dominant strategy at the end of the day, right? Like if you can shoot people's heads, you'll be fine.
No, I mean, it's always the thing that I love in MGS. Well, I love it in MGS5 up until the moment you get too overpowered and it never matters. Yeah. But when games are kind of smart enough to go, oh, you're doing a lot of headshots, okay, in the next level everyone's going to wear a helmet. Or, oh, you're pulling a lot of shit, or like, oh, you're using darkness powers a lot, okay, well, we're going to use more lights as kind of a...
Yeah, right.
Like,
and they
make
armor
it more
their,
reactive.
They armor their heads, so it's not like you can just, you know, click on heads. Like, you're doing more than that. But I would have liked some kind of combo meter, whatever that would have been, and maybe a multiplier. You know, you'd have to mess with the experience points in that case. But,
oh yeah, because I mean that's the main thing, is that like all these points kind of feed into, you get darkness points, and at any and basically it like there's usually like 3 or 4 checkpoints in a level, and at each one there's like a darkness portal that you can access the darkness shop in, where you have the darkness upgrade tree to get different darkness abilities. And again, I think any other game I would be annoyed by that. Not here. Like, it's fine. It's because it's such a short game, they balance it so you're constantly getting like pretty meaningful upgrades, and like upgrades that aren't just like, you know, there are some that are just, you know, buffs to damage or whatever, but it's like, oh, now you've got the flies that will stun people. You've got the gun channeling that'll like give you infinite ammo and kills people really quickly, you know, as like almost a room clear kind of thing. You have the vortexes, which again, in the first game, the vortexes, they're not really sure what to do. You can just like spam them as much as you want. Yeah, that still has the same effect, but they're a little bit more like strategic in how it's doled out. Either it's like, sometimes you get them instead of hearts that you pull out of enemies, or sometimes they just kind of like, hand them rapidly, you know. It will be like a benefit after like killing so many guys. It's just like, cool.
Right.
Well, that's a smart way of using that.
Yeah. And then you also unlock like, so you can do executions in this game, which you could in the first one, though that was just kind of like you walked close enough and then you do a headshot. This one, you stagger someone, and you do a glory kill. It's basically Doom. You do a glory kill. And you either get extra health, or you get more ammunition, or you get faster recovery on your other abilities, like the flies and the gun channeling. And you could also spawn a shield as well, although that feels kind of less useful because there's a pretty plentiful amount of shields in this game, I feel like. But
and I was gonna say you eventually get, because again, like I was thinking of that in regards to like most games would just be like, on the upgrade tree, it's like, okay, now you have 50% more armor. Now you have
Yeah.
25% more armor. You kind of thing. Here they kind of do an interesting thing of like you unlock like specialized armor, but it only works while you're in the dark.
Yeah.
And it changes how you look, which is very sick.
Yeah, the light in this game is really smart as well. Like it's it's again, it's the push forward kind of combat. It's like let's force you out of your comfort zone. You have to take out these specific enemies, first to make sure that you can deal with the other ones, or at least shoot out their lights. And like the bulldozer boss has a light on the front of it that's constantly moving.
Oh yeah.
And the arena fights. There are like 3 big arena fights that I would say. Like there's what's the first one? The bulldozer.
So the first one's a wrecking ball, but being used by Swifty.
Swifty, yes. The second one is at the amusement park. You're just kind of in like this. I don't know what to call it. I don't know, just like a square.
Well, I mean, I guess.
zone.
Well, I mean, technically, or would the second one not be when you fight Bragg in the graveyard? I mean, I guess maybe it doesn't count. But yeah.
Yeah, I feel like as you're going through, it's very corridory, and then maybe like that boss fight. It feels like enemies just kind of come at you from that one direction, like
oh yeah, no, there's not a lot of thought behind it, that one.
Yeah,
so no,
it felt like a smaller scale than like there's like the big 3 to me,
yeah, Piven when you fight him in the underground section where it's all the wine barrels and he has your powers basically.
Oh yeah, I guess that too. I didn't. It's just because he is the only enemy. I mean, in this game there are little darkling clones. I don't know what to call them, like specters, and
he gets
just
to make his own
explode.
darklings basically.
Yeah, they just blow up at you if you don't shoot them from far away. But I guess like when I thought like combat arena, it's like a lot of enemies coming at you they have to deal with, and sort of like there's the shield guy. And
so you're thinking of the one at the
teleport.
end where you're in your dad's house.
Yes, yeah, that's the not the coup d'etat, whatever, the climax.
Apex.
The Apex arena. And so, why was I talking about that? It's just, I like how light is incorporated into those. The bulldozer kind of moves, and then the second one, like different areas like start like to turn on, like they'll turn on a floodlight, or there'll be light guys, and you have to like move around as they keep introducing new lights. And then the last one has just sunlight coming in certain areas. So like if you want to get to ammo or a shield, it's like you're gonna have to, sacrifice your safety. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I really like that.
It's a really cool like again, like to go to sort of like it's not really a system that you could apply to every FPS game because it's so tied into the lore. And again, like in regards to things that are carried over from the first game, obviously the first game is the one where it establishes the interplay between light and dark stuff, and enemies then starting to use light against you as kind of like a fight back sort of thing. But this just develops it way more. Yeah, again, to the extent of you have like all the enemies it's mostly human soldier stuff, which fair enough, but they do a lot of nice I can't remember what the term is from the Game Maker's Tool video, but they talk about orthogonal unit differentiation, where it's like, who are your threats, and kind of splitting them up, and you have like shield guys, you have guys who have one of your darkness powers, like there's a whip guy who can pull weapons away from you, which is cool. There's God. There's light guys, there's and again there's like guys with heavy shotguns or whatever.
Yeah.
So they're doing like a lot to kind of like differentiate your basic human moves. And it's like, this is, and then as you go along as well, it also does the thing of, these guys that you fought as bosses, well, those abilities come back and are applied to regular mooks. So like Bragg, when you fight him in the graveyard, has this he bamps around like Nightcrawler basically. Yeah. And then the enemies start doing that later on. And it's like, cool. This is really smart. Hey, Digital Extremes, the guys who were there at like the prototype 3D FPS games with Unreal, you really know how to make a really solid FPS game from like probably, again, like it's taking a lot of stock parts and just elevating them essentially to be the best that they can possibly be.
Yeah. No, totally. I mean, like, I guess as someone who like, so like I said, I did a second playthrough. I played on the Dawn difficulty, the hardest difficulty on New Game Plus. And
the fact that the hardest difficulty is called the Dawn one is very like they had no idea what the tone of the first game was. It's like, hey, you're a mafia guy. Oh, well, you want to be fucking Tony Soprano, but with superpowers. Am I right? It's like, nope, that's not what was like. The first game was good, but okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I kind of wished, like, the game was actually pretty easy on New Game Plus, even on the hardest difficulty. Like, once you
keep all your stuff.
Exactly.
So.
And so I was like, I kind of wish there was more different kinds of enemies. You know, I guess that's the one thing, like, it's so short and, you know, that they didn't have time to, and maybe people don't want it because Doom Eternal is kind of, I guess, I mean, it's popular, but I would say it's more, you know, like contentious, I guess, or, you know, like it takes a certain kind of person to want to feel stress the entire game.
Of course.
And so,
but
it makes sense to not make it super stressful, but I was kind of hoping.
But it should be there for people who want it, I guess.
Right, exactly. I would have definitely enjoyed. And, you know, maybe they could just have more enemies at a time. I don't know, maybe that would be just kind of annoying, but
yeah, I mean, it's the thing that like Platinum Games or used to be very good at in regards to when you. Well, I mean, it's the Devil May Cry thing, as you said earlier, which like if you play it on normal or easy difficulty, you get kind of the quote intended experience. But then when you play it on hard, like I always think of Wonderful 101, like they start to bring in later enemies and bosses and throw them like into those earlier stages because they expect that you know how to deal with them from playing it once, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's what I was kind of. I mean, I guess I didn't expect them to like do that, right? It's like, oh, you're fighting the later enemies early, because I assumed, knowing that this felt very Call of Duty inspired, it's like this is probably just a damage buff kind of thing, you know, like I'm doing less, they're doing more or whatever. But that would be really nice. I would definitely love that, and maybe the, as we alluded to a little bit earlier, maybe the Vendetta missions would give me a little bit of that. I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah. But. Yeah. I will say, and I guess I'm going all the way back to something we were talking about like minutes ago, but when we were talking about like the flattening of Jackie's character.
Yeah.
Again, we've spoken a lot about nice stuff in this. Now to go back to the negative stuff, I feel like how Jenny's character is handled in this is also very weird and not great.
Agree. I mean, I guess in some sense, Jenny, like, diegetically isn't really in the game that much, right? Like, it is memories.
Yeah, these are Jackie's memories of her, and because Jackie's already a cartoon, of course he would remember her as Princess Peach rather than what she actually was.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, but just how she's kind of handled in this, I found kind of a bit like, you've made her... She's like Mary Jane from Spider-Man than she is like the character from the first one, where, I mean, she's not like a full character in that, but you do get this kind of interesting life of her, that she's a bit more beyond just a damsel in distress. This is here where, I mean, I guess that's also kind of explained by the darkness is still fucking with Jackie's head a little bit, and so it's the thing of like, oh, well, you could say Jenny if you want to, kind of thing. Look how nice it was living with Jenny, kind of thing. So I guess that would be kind of cartooned up a little bit, and then eventually they do start to, well, there is kind of more of a reveal with the stuff like that. I mean, I guess before we move on to sort of plot and level stuff a little bit more, is because, yeah, like, I think we've just sort of nailed on the head that, yeah, the gameplay in this is really fun and really good to play with. Again, if they wanted to go an extra step of making it more like a Devil May Cry, I think that would probably push this into being like, I mean, it'd probably be one of the greatest games ever made.
God tier. Yeah.
It would be alongside Tetris and Minecraft as the only 3 games anyone would ever need.
Right. You could play this on your Tesla while you have it drive itself. And it would be
exactly. If it had that, they would start. People would be like trying to port the Darkness 2 to like washing machines and like bank ATM machines and stuff as well. But unfortunately, it doesn't quite get that far. But no, it's really good, and like again, in a way that's very different to the first one. And I would say that where it lacks some of the stuff that the first game had, like obviously all the kind of all the side story stuff and the hub of again, like New York isn't real. Like New York is postcards in this, even down to the levels that you go to. It's like there's none of that lived in feeling of the first one, but that's fine,
right?
Because like what the game's doing is like uplifting it in an interesting way.
I agree.
Yeah,
it's
good.
It's like everyone should just play it. Everyone should play it.
Yeah.
Your grandmother should play this. Like like they sold Dead Space. Like your mom's gonna hate this. Your mom's gonna love this. I promise.
Yeah, your mom's gonna love the dinosaur.
She's like, oh, Jackie Estacado. Oh shit. And then your dad's like grumpy. He's like, I don't approve of that. Who's that Jackie guy? And
but then the dad sees all the mafia stuff and he's like, oh, I love the Sopranos. Like, this game's great.
Goodfellas? Wait.
Goodfellas? Are these guys Goodfellas? Oh yeah, no, he does. He sees the intro. You go to the Copacabana Club and he's like, oh my god, this is like Goodfellas. This rocks. Pass me the controller, son. Wow, and it's even teaching me how to play an FPS game in this tutorial.
Wow,
so
I could rip everyone's hearts out.
Wow, what a great... And I would even say that to an extent as well, of just that because it is so comic booky, that does gloss over a lot of the kind of the gnarlier elements. I mean, granted, the first game sort of got away with that anyways, but because it wasn't super gnarly. But again, that might be me speaking as a person who's played... being desensitized from a million years of video games, of just being like, oh, it's fine. Yeah, this is fine. A literal baby could play in this game and be absolutely fine. And it's like fucking... hatred or like scorn or whatever. Yeah, a baby could enjoy this. But God, no, game's very good, and I would say that even extends to, because obviously in the first game you'll go into a lot of like docks and like warehouses and stuff like that. Every kind of location you go to in this one is like a really fun level that should be in every FPS game. You go to a bar and you use everything in the bar to like, you throw pool cues at people and you can shoot for the beer bottles, which is always great. And then that leads to a fucking junkyard full of cars and like rubbish that you can use as cover, and you fight a fucking wrecking ball, which fucking rocks. Then you go into a warehouse, which everybody loves a warehouse level because you have nothing. Again, like comparing it to the warehouse in the first game where it's all one level, it's a lot of like meat carcasses and stuff like that. This one you have metal walkways, so you can shoot from above or like, shoot guys off walkways, which is always fun. Like, again, they're like squeezing for all these kind of fun opportunities, but then as the game goes on, it's like, okay, in this one we're going to go to a brothel and it looks like all the women in here look like fucking Borderlands.
Yes.
It's ridiculous. Like, where every male character looks like they just brought in a 3D model from Turbo Squid and threw a shader at it. Like you can tell that all the development time went into modeling all the women in this level. It's like, fair enough, even though you only see them for 5 minutes, if that. But then like you go upstairs and it's like this cool little, like, there are all these kind of like quickly constructed rooms out of plywood, and you're fighting through like a kind of an unfinished building, which rocks. Yeah. You go to a great, you fight through your own mansion, which is, I always like that when you do that in a game where you go to your quote safe space and it turns into a level.
And then I like the parking garage, I guess. I don't know. I at least for
parking garage is fun.
Yeah, I think just they've got good. At that point, like the light guys are being introduced and stuff, so it was just like, I just like the combat, so I'll like it anywhere. But
it's a good opportunity that people can just like spray you with car headlights to turn the lights on, but then you can also use cars as cover and pillars as cover. Again, you can imagine these being like levels that you would just pull out of random FPS games of, you have to have like a car park because, again, cars are a danger. You can use pillars, but it's also like wide open, so like you have all these different tactics. Yeah, like again, the sort of like hastily made plyboard place that they built above the brothel. Again, also very video gamey. Of just, you could shoot for the plywood. Not that you can in this, but like that's an idea as well. It's all these very solid concepts, but then as the game goes along, they just start to have way more fun of it. Of probably my favorite level in an FPS game outside of like Titanfall 2, you go to an amusement park.
Oh,
what a fucking what a perfect setting for a level in an FPS game, a literal fucking amusement. Like, to the extent of they can have a diegetic on rails section.
That is
where you go for the ghost train. It's great.
Yeah, and like you have these flashbacks where you're doing shooting ranges with Jenny, which is kind of cute, you know. I guess there's a lot of Jenny in this one, right?
Yeah,
but yeah, I just love the look of this like boardwalk, this boardwalk carnival feel. Yeah, I don't know. It does. Yeah, I appreciate it.
I think if you were to be like, if you wanted to write like an hour-long video about like the world's smallest thing, you could probably talk about how like the diegetic elements of carnivals are full of like games where you shoot down targets or like you're on a rail or something like that. How that perfectly translates into a fun FPS game of, oh, you're literally just doing all of these things as well. It's just that the way that we dress them in that, oh, you're Master Chief and you're saving humanity from the government, or you're Quake guy and you're heading into kind of realms unknown. The dressing doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, the shooting is always down to quick reflex challenges, using your spaces, kind of when you're locked on a rail, it's about having awareness about all these kind of dimensions around you. But again, like that's all existed for hundreds of years in fairgrounds, but that has now since been translated into video game technology.
Right.
And this game is essentially bringing that back and saying this is where it all kind of begins. And to even go back to talking about sort of Jackie's development as a character, you could argue that, hey, him being a crack shot at the fairground is sort of like almost a kind of a sad irony of this is preparing him for what the rest of his life is going to be like, is being very good at shooting.
Yeah. You know? Oh, totally. I mean, I don't know if this game thinks it's sad irony, but yeah.
Oh, no, that's what I mean. Like, if you wanted to kind of like read into it, you could have that. But I think like if you said to anyone at Digital Exchange, they were just like, oh no, we just thought that would be a cool level. And again, New York is your backdrop. You can get away, like a city that is that old and has all these different kind of plugins to it. Yeah, you could have an amusement park level. Yeah, you could have a brothel. You could have a big ass cemetery that you fight. Again, it's all very cool. And I would even say that kind of extends to, and I guess to go sort of talk on the plot. Not that I think we could sum up the plot in 2 sentences, which is there's a cult that wants the darkness. Also, he might be able to save Jenny.
Yeah.
Boom.
That's pretty much
there we go. Yeah, there we go. We nailed it on the head. He's the head of the crime family now, which he seems to be absolutely fine with. He goes for dinner. The dinner gets hit by Swifty's gang, and while he's bleeding out, the darkness comes back to save him, essentially. But then you also kind of get like an appearance of, it seemed like they fucking called the hit. They put the hit out on Jackie to basically activate his darkness powers to bring it back out into the open. You're then kind of in a chase to figure out, well, where are the cultist guys? You go to their turf, and it turns out they've already gone to your turf, which is what you were saying earlier about, so you go to this brothel, and I got a contact there who's one of the prostitutes, essentially, who she lets you upstairs and gives you a gun so you can go and fight the cultists. But then I quite like the little puzzles that they have of those indestructible lights and generators where you have to go out and you have to follow the cables and turn them off. Again, nice little break from just shooting, but also without having to like totally reconfigure an FPS game, which is fine. But yeah, you get stuck in a situation where they blast you in bright lights, crucify you like Jesus to 2 planks of wood, and put giant nails through your hands. And they have a special. They have a magic wand that they're using to suck all the darkness.
It's called the siphon. Okay, please get it right. The siphon of Angelus, actually.
Okay, yeah. So after you do the first level at the Italian restaurant where everybody gets shot, but then when do you go into the subway's after that, right? Or is the subway during?
Is it?
No,
because all the guys.
The subway. Yeah, so the subway's during it, yeah, because you get hit by because you keep seeing Jenny while you're doing this. Okay, so because the darkness is back, that's why they start to tease you with Jenny to be like, oh, do you want to get Jenny? Oh, you're gonna have to do what we say, which is mostly just, can you eat a lot of guys' hearts, please?
Yeah.
And I mean, I'll get to the Jenny thing in a second, but yeah, like, you managed to fight through all that, and then they're just like, oh, fuck, we thought you were fucking dead. No, I'm okay. Let's go home and figure out who put out the hit. Which is why you go to Swifty's bar, which is where you go for all of that stuff. And then Swifty basically says, I was paid off by... And before he can say who paid him off, the darkness kills them because they don't want you to find out what the fuck is going on. But you find the giant wad of money that he has that has a old-fashioned wax seal on it. But you also say, hey, can you go and get Jimmy? Or no, not Johnny. What was his name? The guy, the two with the eyes, with the two colored eyes.
Johnny Powell.
Can you go and get Johnny Powell? Because he's an occult expert and an expert on the darkness, and he can help me out. The reason that you go and get Johnny Powell is because when you were going through the subway and you get hit by a train, you wake up in an asylum. Now, this is this game's version, I assume, of when you were going to World War I in the first game, but far less interesting than that. Like, again, I guess it's just because, like, I'm sure you're the same as me, but, like, that trope of just being, you know, of, like, you have, like, a fantasy or a sci-fi story, and then the character wakes up and they're in an asylum, and it's like, oh, no, you imagined all of that. You're actually completely crazy. None of that was real. Like, that's just such an overdone trope at this point that it's like...
It's a Batman the Animated Series episode.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that Batman the Animated Series does that. But I was also kind of thinking of, like, Total Recall, sort of. Well, they never show him in a padded cell, but that's also, like, a similar thing to that. But... And again, like, this is a sequel to the Darkness one, so you're very aware of just kind of like, oh, this... Well, obviously this isn't real, is it? And also... How does that explain the Vendetta mode? I suppose. Whatever, I guess.
It's all fake. Yeah, like... Yeah, you keep going back to this asylum, and it's not like... Like, I was rewatching the game earlier to take notes and stuff, and it's not like it really, like, thematically, like, elevates anything. Obviously, this game doesn't really have strong...
This game has zero themes. For the people who say that you hate politics in games, here's the game for you. This has nothing. This has head empty, clip full. Yeah. Is this game?
It's just a way of, like, being a red herring. It's just like, maybe this isn't real, you know. But when you spoilers to the end, the asylum is not real, and it is the darkness, you know, keeping you docile. Like, when you replay the game, it's just really fucking annoying. And it's like, I know this is... Just let me get through... Excuse me. Let me get to the end of this. Thank you. I know it's not real.
Yeah.
You know?
At least with the World War I stuff, like, again, thematically, it was the thing that we said last time of, like, obviously, Jackie Estacado is an FPS protagonist, and you could argue that, like, World War I was the beginning of that sort of... the world becoming more obsessed with these kind of like theaters of war, which is what we've turned into video games kind of mindset. And also the fact that, like, you know, all the people there are like stitched together because it's a war that they have to keep fighting forever and ever is kind of the thing. Whereas in this, it is just like, hey, Adolfo, what the hell is going on? And then like everyone's there is like, you know, one flew over the cuckoo's nest, and they think that like Dolfo thinks that he's Hitler, and like Johnny Powell's talking about random stuff as well. Like, again, it's just all the sort of tropes. And the only sort of thing is that I thought it was kind of interesting that like certain people of authority are like, they're depicted as the doctors and nurses and stuff. Like Jimmy the Grape is Dr. James, and he's just like, oh, I know, I must be fucking dreaming if you're a doctor, Jimmy the Grape. And then Jenny is this, like, the thing that they've done with that is that, like, oh, you can still be here, but Jenny's your nurse and she's telling you to take your medication, basically, which, fair enough, I suppose. But, like, again, it's so... I mean, saying that it's so obvious is kind of like being like, yeah, I can see the arrow in the FedEx logo. Like, yeah, like, that's the thing. But as you say, like, it does slow the game down to it doesn't make the experience richer like the World War One stuff does in the first game. And again, like they could have done a thing of like, well, technically that's the darkness zone, so maybe he could be learning other stuff while he's there through like some of the other guys, but that's not. It's more. They feel more like hurdles than anything else.
Like on first playthrough, I guess there is the mystery of like, maybe this is it didn't make sense, but I'm like, this has to be going somewhere, right? It can't just be the obvious. But no, it is kind of just the obvious at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so in retrospect, you're like, well, what the fuck was that? Like, why did we even bother?
What was the point in that? God. Which, I mean, speaking of what was the point in that, those whole fucking segments ends with a moral choice, like, because all video games at this time had to have a moral choice, but it's like she just, do you stay at the asylum and the game ends, or do you leave the asylum and you get the last chunk of the game? Speaking of character choices as well, so when you go to the brothel and you're being shot by lasers, and when they're trying to pull the darkness juice out of you, and they go, Jackie, give us the darkness juice, and Jackie goes, I have no idea how, and then they go, oh, playing hardball, eh? All right, look at the TV screen, and they make you choose between two of your mooks, Eddie and Frank. Which one do you want to have executed? Now, I'm not going to assume that you remember, but I'm guess which one did you execute?
So first time through, I didn't press anything, and they automatically kill Eddie, if I'm not mistaken, the bald one.
Oh, okay.
And you get an achievement for that, actually. You if you don't.
Oh, for not doing it.
Yeah, for just like refusing. I mean, it felt like kind of a non-choice. I was just, or just like a It's like, I don't really know these guys. Whatever, doesn't matter to me. Go ahead. Dealer's choice, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, you're the guy with the gun. You choose.
Right. Who do you want to die more?
Yeah. But like I think I chose Eddie, and that was just purely based on the fact that in the previous scene he seemed like a bit of a creep from the fucking story that he was telling. So I was like, I guess I'll go Eddie then. But again, there's no payoff to it apart from when you go back to the mansion later. One of the guys is there and the other guy isn't. Yeah. And that's it.
And they're like, man, I'm sad. And you're like, yeah, me too.
Yeah, like Frank said to me, he was just like, hey, I don't hold it against you, okay? What happened, you know? And it's like, cool, all right. No moral weight on my shoulders then. Dust my hands. But
yeah, it felt so kind of random and needless. Like, it's so strange. Though, again, another Wolfenstein premeditate, or like they foresaw this choice between killing two people, but that actually has narrative consequences.
That does have genuine payoff. Like, whether you get the electrocraft work or the diesel craft work in the second game, but also, what's the difference between in the first game as well? Like, you get two different weapons in that, I think, depending whether Fergus or the American guy.
Yeah, like the rookie.
I
mean, they are just like interesting characters, I think, more than, Frank and Eddie. So you do, get to learn about these people, which I think is worth something. But yeah, I forget if there's gameplay. I've only played those games once through, so I never saw like what choosing the other one would do.
So I remember. So in the second one, you get. So you remember in the first game, you have the lasercraft work, which is the laser gun that lets you cut holes in metal sheets.
Yes, right.
So you get an upgraded version of that in the second one, and it depends on who survived in the first game. Oh, cool. Not that it matters, because they give you a cutscene flashback to the first game where you can decide. Well, actually, I want Fergus to be dead in this one instead. Yeah. So, I quite like how they. I don't know if you ever noticed it in Wolfenstein 2 as well, but I like how they get around in the early cutscenes who's alive or dead by, doesn't matter who you choose, they're both wearing exactly the same green jacket in the sequel. So they just cut them from you only see them from like the collar down, basically. It's good. Yeah. Versus in this, well, as you said, because this is like, I don't know, just because there's no real character development in this apart from like what happens in cutscenes and whatever. There's just not much to it. So I don't really know why they had it.
It's this game is not a story game and not a character-driven game, so it's odd to do that, except as to just show like, oh, these guys are fucked up. They make you like, just the idea of it is what they want to communicate. Just like, these are the type of people that would do this, and that's it. They're just kind of fucked up.
And I would say that the sadder thing then happens when you get back to the compound. Yeah, you have the really cool fight in the car park. Then you go upstairs, and it turns out that Jackie's compound had a shooting gallery on it, so you can just choose whatever guns you want.
Yeah.
Cool. Fan of that. You fight through the mansion, which, again, cool idea. And then poor round Sarah gets killed in a really gruesome and brutal way.
Yeah. And just
off screen, I suppose, but still grim.
Yeah, I'm sure the women in these games, let's just be frank, not treated very well. And I guess this one especially, like, the first one just has Jenny, which is, you know, a trope, but like,
it also has Aunt Sarah in the first, but she's just she's an old woman up until that section where you defend the house, where she's blowing guys away.
Exactly, it's cool. But then this one's just like, all the women must die. The hooker must die. Like, you see her hanging.
Yeah, they're either fallen Madonna hookers with their tits out, or they're like, they're all just, they have to be fridged to fucking project to push the plot along. Yeah. And literally, like, Sarah dying is then fucking literally what happens in the next level is you go to her funeral, which gets interrupted by fucking magic guys who are throwing people about.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, poor I feel like, I don't know. I feel like the Sarah thing was kind of unnecessary. I don't know. Yeah, it's a shock moment, but that's it.
But but it's also a shock to people who have played the first one, who I imagine were probably being like, yeah, but I want to ride the subway. Why don't you let me ride? Why can't I ring people on the phone? This game sucks.
And they're like, fuck you. This is what we think of that game. We're going to stab it in the heart.
Where I guess in this is that they kind of flatten their character as well to just being, oh, he's a mafia guy, but he has a nice grandma, to the extent of before she dies, she says, Jackie, you look tired. What if I make you a big lasagna dinner? I'd like that.
I think she says like meatloaf. She doesn't say lasagna.
Sorry, that's right, meatloaf.
Come on.
Yeah, I think. God. Do you want to see the worst though? When you go back to the mansion for the first time and you talk to her, she says, Jackie, you need to get over Jen.
Yes, she does.
Yeah, she's just like, Jackie, just get over it. It's not moping around.
Okay, so she is motivated in that. She's talking about your dad, who, as we learn, was obsessed with trying to get the darkness out of Jackie, basically.
Turns out your dad was a darkness. Yeah, your dad, like, that was the thing that I said in the last episode, is that you never get an idea of his parents. Yeah, it turns out it's because his dad was fucking Indiana Jones, but for darkness shit in this.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah, he has a fucking mansion full of relics to do with the darkness. Well, it turns out that the Iron Maiden that they take you to in the fucking basement that's full of barrels of wine, that's your dad's house or dad's old manor, right?
Right, exactly, yeah. I guess your dad would maybe more be Sean Connery, maybe, in the third one?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
I suppose that makes more sense.
Having a troubled relationship with your dad. Who, well, actually, I think Sean Connery didn't really have great intentions ever. The dad in this, like, it was like kind of a, like, Jackie mentions that his dad, like, he caught his dad with like a butcher knife over his bed once, and he was like, I don't know if he wanted to put me out of my misery or make sure that he stayed on top. And it's like, it seems more like he didn't want his son to be a demon. Granted, maybe he shouldn't have had kids, but that's whatever.
I mean, you could have adopted.
Yeah, precisely.
There we go. Yeah, exactly. This game is against adopt, but both Darkness games are against adoption.
They hate, they kill orphans in the first one.
Oh yeah, they literally burn down the orphanage, don't they?
They fucking hate orphans, man.
God, what the fuck is up with what's up with the Darkness franchise and orphans? Very weird. But so yeah, poor Sarah dies, and you go to a funeral, and then it turns into a cool, spooky cemetery fighting section, which cool, fair enough. And then you fight Bragg, and before the Darkness can kill him, he does at least say, oh, you don't go after my boss, he'll kick your ass. And he's like, oh, watch me. And he's like, oh, okay. Well, good news for you. He's in Hellgate, where that cute amusement park was, where you and Jenny used to go in flashbacks. And he's like, all right, off I go to there then. And yeah, you have a cool section through amusement park. Which,
I just got to mention, you,
yes,
with Bragg, you rip his fucking heart out. You
you open his chest up.
You slash his
and then you
sternum in half, and then you rip it open, and Jackie's with his own hand takes out his heart. I mean, for Aunt Sarah, it makes sense.
It's very Mortal Kombat in a way that
yes.
And again, the toon shading kind of they sort of get away with it being so gaudy, but again, you would never imagine a moment like that would happen I mean, how does fucking Paulie dies in the first game? You just shoot him, right? Yeah. And that's it. God.
Yeah, it just kind of come out of nowhere. Like, obviously Bragg is he's a taunting piece of shit who killed your aunt. But Jackie doesn't it doesn't feel like he externalizes his anger to where that makes, I mean, it makes sense, but you just don't expect it because there's no build up to that. There's no Bragg, you motherfucker, I'm gonna get you. It's just, by the way, I'm gonna rip your heart out.
Yeah, Jackie doesn't seem like he cares about shit looking cool. At least in the first one, he's just very kind of gotta do what I gotta do. He's just very much a blunt weapon. Yeah. Whereas in this, he really loves doing overly animated and slick looking kills of people, where he picks them up with one of his tentacles and rolls them like a big sausage while the other tentacle pops through their chest and eats their heart, which is always cool to watch, but also feels very out of character for Jackie Estacado, I suppose.
Yeah, all the well, actually, there are some executions that are pretty basic, but yeah, a lot of these the wishbone where you tear a dude in half.
Oh yeah, you split him in half like fucking bone tomahawk.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah. That's what I mean. There's a lot of epic kind of Mortal Kombat execution stuff in this, which if you were coming over from the first game, you would just be annoyed if just no, I liked it because the tone was sad. It's the thing that I said last time of just the first game is heroin and this one's cocaine.
Yes.
One is sad and kind of melancholy, where this one is a non-stop guitar solo for the most part.
And I needed to play the second one to fully get that. I understood what you were saying, but now in contrast, it's oh yeah, that first one is heroin. This is speed. This is fucking meth. This is everything.
Yeah, this is like somebody took a shitload of Adderall before working on this game, which, as we've kept saying, not only is it fine, really good is really, really good as a result, but just different is the thing. But yeah, the theme park is cool. And then right at the end, for extra gnarly points, they throw you in a fucking Iron Maiden and say, well, you didn't give us the powers last time, so now we're going to take them from you again.
Right. I do want to mention the haunted house. I think that was a cool little haunted house. Really cool. I was that was if that was real, that'd be fucking sick. I don't know.
All the people being skeletons being executed and stuff like that. The big gnashing teeth. Yeah, that was a very cool haunted house. It was a cool theme park in general. I just think somebody should go in there. Give it a bit of a fresh lick of paints. Brush away some stuff. You could get that place up and running for summer 2024, I reckon.
Yeah.
Be a good
well,
good place to visit in Hellgate.
We'll get my team on it. Okay.
Okay. We'll put the Patreon money towards updoing that theme park. But yeah, again, to go back to the sort of Titanfall 2 thing of just every level in that game is a Mario Galaxy level of just, okay, here's the level where you're in a factory and you watch another level being made bit by bit, and then you fight in that arena at the end. Very cool. Okay, here's the level where you go to a factory and you travel, you can blip back and forth through time. Very cool. Here's the level where you run along the sides of spaceships to jump between them. Very cool. This is a nice thing of just, if you're making an FPS game, every level should have this kind of juice to it of have a level where you go through and you have to do shooting galleries and a ghost train to progress kind of thing. If you have the time and if you have the talent, do it, because it's like, especially the Drek that I play for this fucking podcast, like, it is very much appreciated.
I gotta break down, man. I can't do this podcast anymore. This made me realize I hate this shit.
I really hate playing shit FPS games for this podcast. I mean, it's been nice though. Last couple of episodes we've done have been like again, we did BioShock 2, banger. Darkness 1, banger. A lot of good stuff we've been playing recently for the. I didn't listen. High on Life. Okay, yeah. I had a lot of fun with, despite fucking Royland's involvement in it.
Right. Okay, that's good to hear. Yeah, I've that just came out. I didn't have time to listen to it, but
sorry.
That's good.
But yeah, you get thrown in an Iron Maiden. You do another section where you're in the asylum, but then your imp friend turns up as a little British janitor man, and he says,
"Oh yeah."
Yeah, this is all a construct. Don't worry about it. Your body's fucked up and they're trying to rebuild it at the moment, which, hey, why didn't you pop into my eyes to an even more extended stealth section? Sure, I'll do that. And then Jackie is then finally out of the Iron Maiden, but he's lost his darkness powers.
Which, okay, plot hole. Cinema Sins ding. If he lost his powers, would he not like just immediately die from being inside of an Iron Maiden? Like the darkness was like kind of always sort of healing him, regenerating, right? Once that's gone, wouldn't he be dead? I'm just saying, I don't really care. But
my assumption was that it literally the moment that it finished healing him, the last of the darkness juice was pulled out. Like it made me think, like it's like turning your computer immediately after copying a file over is kind of what I thought about that.
Okay.
But yeah.
Fine.
No,
fine.
It makes... No, I do get you though, because it is like, yeah, if that's what was healing him, why didn't the Iron Maiden then just immediately kill him? Maybe it was the imp guy keeping him alive as well. Because they kind of say something weird, don't they? Because then you go through, you get your dad's ancient shotgun, which you see when you're the imp, and you're like, oh boy, I hope I get to use that.
Yes.
Oh, thank God I do. Which is a lot of fun. Again, just doing a little section without your darkness powers. I always like it in FPS games when, again, like you don't have a lot to work with, so they can literally go, well, what would be a cool idea? Oh, why don't we have a level where like something that you rely on we just turn off for a little bit? Again, the on-rail section in the ghost train is literally is you can't move, so it's all about like aiming and where you're looking. This is the same thing of, oh, you can't use your darkness powers for a bit, so it's gonna feel like more of a Call of Duty style FPS game, which cool. I like that. That works for me.
Yeah, just as a little taste. And you don't have a lot of health and you can't regenerate your health, so it's sort of tense. I like that. You can regenerate just like 1/4 of your health. You can't get the full 4. There's like 4 quarters to explain to people.
I imagine it feels better on like Dawn mode or whatever it's called in New Game Plus, like this little section, because again, it shows how just like small tweakings of numbers gets like completely different identities out of FPS games of just like, hey, here's an FPS game where you don't have regenerating health and all the enemies are more powerful than you. Oh, but now it becomes more strategic and tactical. It's more about using cover and watch my sight lines and trying to create like kill zones and stuff like that versus the rest of the game where it's, oh, hey, I have all my darkness powers, so I'm just going to go around like whipping my, tentacle back and forth and,
and eat,
having a great time.
And eat their hearts. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of eating hearts, by the way, did you notice my favorite detail, which is that in the Darkness one, the only tentacle that eats all the hearts is the one on.
Oh, is it the left now? Is it?
Yeah. So in the first one, only Righty is the one that gets to eat the tentacles. Even in those, occasionally they show the animation where the tentacles fight over the heart, but the right one always wins and gets to eat it. No, in the second one, Lefty, he's eating good. Lefty's the only one who eats the hearts. So.
Like, that really did bug me that in the first game. It's like, why? Like, did you not want to animate it? Like, just, come on, man, he's hungry. Is he not hungry? Maybe they share the same stomach, but... me who has like baby brain for just like
if there's like a gremlin or a guy in a game. And yeah, it's just like, yeah, kind of like just me writing an email to Starbreeze 15 years later. It's like, hey, why didn't you let the right guy eat anything? What's wrong with you? Kind of.
That's kind of fucked up of you guys.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Why didn't they both get to eat hearts equally? And it's just like, are you not like upset that they were eating hearts? And it's like, well, no, that's just the game, man. You know, those are the rules that you established.
Yeah, they have to eat the hearts. I'm not against that. It's what they do, you know.
they're like spoiled dogs, where it's just kind of like, oh, you can't give it wet food. It's like, oh, he can only eat red meat. Like, oh, they can only eat human hearts.
Right.
They won't eat anything else.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just gonna have to get some hearts. I know it's tough. You just go to the grocery store and just buying sheep hearts and shit. That's all you can get. That's all my dog will eat.
You're going on holiday for a fortnight. I can't afford buying human hearts every time it wants to eat. Like, it's just like, yeah, but it's all it's gonna eat. So, like, you know, I mean, I'll repay you when I get the money. All right,
just do it. Just I don't know. Go to a donation clinic. I don't care. I don't care what you do.
Just give him what he wants. It'll make him happy.
Or you're
next. Don't worry about it.
Or you're
next. Oh yeah. Or is your heart on the line here, but gosh. So yeah, you fight Peevish, who has so again, like, it's a cool thing of just, oh hey, what's it like to fight a guy who has your power set? Turns out not that bad for the most part.
Weirdly, like, he only uses the flies, which just they don't even hurt you that much. They just kind of make you hard to see. And then
they just kind of cover your screen.
Right. And then the little imps, which, you know, they can damage you pretty well if you don't shoot them. The darklings rather, not imps. They can damage you if you don't do it from far away. I don't even think I died in that fight on the hardest difficulty.
No, I'm gonna say I don't think I died once. I mean, I think I played it on normal difficulty, but I don't think I died once playing the game. It's pretty forgiving for the most part.
Yeah, the first time through on hard normal new game, there was a couple spots. The wrecking ball, that one kind of got to me just because, like, I think part of the problem was I started playing the game on my CRT, and so in 4:3 aspect ratio, and so I just didn't have as much peripheral vision. I switched back to the normal TV, but so that didn't help.
Okay.
But I just couldn't. I was just like, I couldn't figure out the ball, and like, it kind of tracks you, but all you really have to do is just like wait for it to come and then run forward a little bit before it hits you. It's not so bad, but that one took me a bit to like wrap my head around. And then there was one. So on my Dawn playthrough, so in the parking garage.
Yes.
So I ran out of ammo. And
oh no!
So I was coming up against a light guy. Now, so that means that I couldn't use, like, I just had to like really. I just like bashed my head on this moment for a little bit because maybe I was being stubborn, but it's like what I had to do is like, okay, make sure I'm hiding behind a car and then I can slash a guy. Make sure I get his gun. Make sure it has enough ammo that I can like hit the light, because like the light's kind of hard to hit a little bit. Like, you know, you're being blinded by the light. Like, it kind of, you know, you don't see exactly where it is. You see a light, but you know, you have to have kind of precise aim for it. And so like it was just like a really tough spot for me. Like, when you don't have ammunition, which I feel like this game is almost a little scarce with ammo in a way that I appreciate.
Ammo is a little bit skimpy in this. Like, I think I had to, once I upgraded into the thing where when you pick a guy up and you can either get health back or get ammo back. Yeah. Like, that started to fix it for me a little bit. But yeah, ammo is very skint in this. And I wonder whether it was a thing of there's a lot more weapons or it feels like there's more weapons in this. Yeah. And they're also, they let you, much like Halo 2, they let you change out what your dual wielding is. Like, you can have a pistol in one hand and an Uzi in the other, or like whatever. It's not like double Uzis or double pistols this time. I wondered whether that was a thing of they wanted you to constantly cycle through weapons, which, I mean, maybe that's the case, but it also feels like whatever weapons you pick up don't have enough ammo in them to make that worthwhile.
Yeah, so that's why it felt like kind of the push forward thing of like, you make sure you're staggering people and ripping them in half to get more ammo, you know, like keeping you pushing forward. I think that's what that was intended. I think maybe that didn't give you a ton of ammo. Like it could have been a little bit better about it. Like when you did the execution. But it made me like conscious of like making sure I had enough health and then making sure I could get ammo from these guys, and I appreciated it. I guess like one thing that did bother me was like I wasn't sure if I could pick up ammo from dropped weapons. Like you had to be like really close to them, and it just felt like there's a lot of guns here. Like how am I not like full of bullets? You know, I don't know. Like picking it up, like just if you hover over a weapon, sometimes you get ammo, but it didn't feel like that was consistent. Or maybe
no, I think I noticed that as well. And it's definitely, I think towards the end of the game, like the big arena fight in your dad's house, that felt like less of an issue. It was more towards the beginning of the game, like especially in the junkyard, I felt like I don't really have like a lot of ammo to work with here. But yeah, as I said, I mean, maybe that could have just been an encouragement thing as well of just not always relying on your guns, also using like your darkness powers, which like they're not on a charge or anything, but they also don't do like a ton of damage.
Well, then there are the flies and the gun channel.
Yeah, and the enhanced guns, that's true.
And those give you infinite ammo, so that's a good way of like getting out of a pinch, right? It's like, oh, you're out of ammo? Now make sure to use this, you know.
Yeah. No, so that's what I mean. So it is like well considered, like how you approach this stuff.
Right.
You know, I'm sure. I feel like this is the longest we've ever actually spoken about combat and gun stuff
in a game
on a fucking podcast about FPS games. Like when we did like the Bureau or like any of the other stuff that we've done recently, it's mostly just like, yeah, and so in this level you do this, and then the character says this and whatever. Oh yeah, the game has guns in it. The guns feel okay. Anyways, in this level you do, like you barely, like a very rarely ever touch on gun feel stuff. But yeah, as you said, like this is. It does feel kind of prototypical of just the sort of the push forward kind of design of Doom, which I feel I don't really know if anyone's sort of tapped into that. Like it mostly just seems to be the id are the masters of it, but they've only put 2 games and 2 DLCs out since, you know?
Yeah, like
I don't really know.
What were we gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say apart from maybe like indie stuff, like
that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, Ultra Kill maybe might be the best because like that is like a character action game mixed with an FPS.
Yeah, do you get health from enemies' blood in that game?
I think you do.
So that's that's a good way of forcing it. Like one of my favorite FPSs of recent times is Dusk, but honestly, Dusk I don't feel like it doesn't have those kinds of mechanics. You know, it does. It's more traditional in a way, but I just like how. Yeah. You've got good maneuverability, like the bunny hopping. I like mastered in that game. That's really fun.
Yeah.
So and that just has more like, you know, of that old Doom Quake style. Like here's a monster closet, and here's kind of weird, interesting levels, especially towards the end and stuff. It's about the combat, and there's a lot of strafing and projectile dodging, but it's different. It's its own kind of thing.
Yeah, whereas like Ultra Kill just has the arenas are very open for the most part because it's mostly like a lot of circle strafing and just laying on damage in most parts. But then they do cool stuff with it. So
I've not played Ultra Kill. That is like I really want to, but I'm also a patient person who is like I'll wait till it's out of early access.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's still being developed, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's, Might as well wait until it's done. You can hand over a crisp $20 and say, give me Ultra Kill.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I mean, I am trying to think, like, any recent FPS stuff which has just been really, like, good feeling in that. Like, it does feel like the last really good one was Titanfall 2, and that was 8 years ago.
Isn't that fucked up?
Yeah, I know. Where's the fucking time gone, man? God, it's
in terms of like big games. You mean like
kind of like Yeah, or it's just like anything that kind of like had a genuine mark on the culture. I mean, granted, Titanfall 2 is kind of up for debate on that because of how well it's sold. But like, because I always think with indie stuff, it's like you and me know about that because of, with most. I feel like people who listen to this podcast will know about those games because we're very into that kind of genre and stuff. Right. But just like on a kind of a wider level. Now, it feels like maybe Doom Eternal was probably the last big one back in 2020, right?
And that just influences indie games. Like, I don't think it's going to influence any other big shooters,
No, I mean, it was the thing that we would that I kind of touched upon a little bit in the last episode of like, what's a prestige game? By the way, just for the folks at home, Darkness 2, this isn't I wouldn't say at all this is this has like nothing in common with prestige stuff, which I would say for the better, but whatever. But like sort of the end of the prestige era has meant like FPS games are no longer the big focus for a lot of developers, which is why like the only consistent FPS franchise that comes out every year is Call of Duty, and they don't change anything. They have their formula, and even in that time where they were experimenting with, Advanced Warfare, Advanced Warfare, where they had like a little bit of movement tech in it, wall running and stuff like that, or like Black Ops 4, I think, or Black Ops 3 had a little bit of that, of like exosuits and whatever. Yeah. For the past few years, it's been either Modern Warfare or it's COD Black Ops Cold War, and just those are very not by the numbers, but very standard and normal FPS, ADS, shoot down the rifle. You're not really going to be bouncing around much FPS games. Right. So.
Like Cold War felt like they had like some mechanics where it was like you could grab and throw people and like maybe one or two other odd ones, but that wasn't that useful because again, the framework is a Call of Duty game with hit scan enemies and regenerating health. Like it's just... Yeah, you just can't go into the fray like that. It's just not. You got to make up for it with, I guess, like mobility, like a Titanfall 2 or Call of Duty Black Ops 3, I guess.
Yeah, Halo Infinite had a little bit of that, but because it was mostly in the multiplayer, and like it was only like a couple of things that they carried over from Halo 5's multiplayer, where this was like way more on it. But like Halo 5's multiplayer was great because it was like. The way that all these kind of abilities cross over with each other was a bit like some of the abilities you had were very American football. Like you could just run around and like shoulder barge people and create space, which was like really cool to use in sort of team deathmatches and even create space and stuff like that. And then Halo Infinite sort of stepped back from that, brought it more in line with Halo 3, but still had like kind of decent sprinting and like mobility stuff. But yeah, just you don't really see like a ton of these kind of funny innovations now in like big AAA or AA FPS games. I mean, granted, I can't even think of the last big AAA or AA FPS. Like we've played a bunch of crap on Game Pass.
A definite bullet time game, Immortals of Avium.
Oh yeah, no, I do want to do Immortals of Avium on the pod because I think when we did the Hexen episode, we even said like, why doesn't nobody just make a magic shooter where it's an FPS, but rather than shooting bullets, you shoot magic? Easy idea. Hey, they did that, and it was a fucking sales disaster. Nobody bought
and it. Ghostwire Tokyo, potentially another bullet time.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that one leans more like open world design, but I mean, it's a shooter still. At the end of the day.
Yeah, no, well, you're casting magic, but it's done in the style of, an FPS game like Doom. Right. So, pop those on the list, I suppose. And kind of speaking of Ghostwire Tokyo and supernaturalness, Darkness 2. Which, yeah, that game that we were talking about. I can't even remember where we really got to in regards, I guess...
After the Iron Maiden, we fought
so you got out of the Iron Maiden, you eventually get your powers back, and you find out that you're in your dad's house, who is really into darkness stuff. All of the baddies, the cultists are in here. They want to try and like stop the darkness they want to get the darkness out of you for good. But then you defeat the leader, who has a... I forgot to mention this again, like talking about kind of comic booky design stuff. Victor, whatever his name is, the guy who leads the Brotherhood, has this kind of like really interesting sort of scarring on the side of his face where you can see like exposed teeth and like kind of his eye socket a little bit like Two-Face from Batman.
Oh, yeah.
But again, like a character like that would never have worked in the original one.
Nah, I mean, they could do some scarring, I guess, but yeah, not like this to this level. You know, like it works best as like a cartoon.
Yeah. No, and even your boss fight with him, which is in the world's largest attic.
God, yeah.
Is, yeah.
Yeah, that's a fine fight, I guess. Like he introduces this like he throw waves of energy at you and you have to like slash them with your tentacle, this is like I guess they train you with like electrical wiring earlier in the game, but like you could just hide behind a pillar and you're fine. So
that's what I ended up doing because it was quicker than trying to do the slashes.
Yeah, exactly. Like the slashes are kind of hard to control. Like especially like it always felt finicky to like direct them. Like you can make them go like from down to up, up, down, you know, left, right, left. And I felt like I couldn't really ever get it right, especially like, so there's an ability you have potentially where if you like slash someone up, you kind of throw them in the air and they float there and you can like take them out.
Oh, yeah.
I could not really ever do it in practice. So like I just kind of dropped. Like that sounded like a cool idea to me, you know, like that's a really, you know, good way of like crowd control, right? Like lift these guys up, shoot over here, and then shoot this guy as he falls. But it never really worked out. So the slashing, while useful, like, you know, when you're doing close quarters stuff and all that, like it's hard to do it precisely, I guess.
It very much reminded me of the Switch port of Skyward Sword, where they try and map sword swipes onto the stick. And yeah, it's not quite. And I think in an FPS as well, where you're constantly changing camera movement or whatever in these kind of micro motions on a stick, then trying to do like just pausing in place so you can do swipes is like, it's not like if they had made those like button presses where A is vertical and X is like side, that would have just worked way better.
I agree. Yeah. I don't know if the controller would be comfortable with that. Like a keyboard, I could have, you know, I would have been probably fine.
Yeah. I mean, I'm only thinking because I don't think you really use the face buttons much during the heated combat. Anyway, like for the most part, they want thumbs on the sticks and then you're shooting your indexes and your rings on the shoulders and triggers. But like, you only really press the face buttons when you want to do an execution move.
Do you reloading?
Oh yeah, no, that's right. Reloading is on A or X, I think.
And then
because there's no jump in the game.
Is there no jump?
I can't remember ever jumping in this. I mean, maybe there must be jumping in this because
there's jumping. I mean, you don't use it a lot. It's not that kind of, you know. There's
it's just right? you put jumping in an FPS game in case you like just accidentally bump some geometry and get stuck. So it's just easy to have a jump to get out of it.
Yeah. Like it's weird that like you don't even jump a lot in a lot of. Like especially like a Call of Duty, it's like, why do we jump? But the game feel would be so fucked if you got rid of it. It feels like, I don't know why. Like you want that.
I mean, fucking Wolfenstein New Order doesn't have jumping in it, does it? Or does it? No, that must have.
That has to.
Yeah. If somebody out there who's listened to this, make a matrix of FPS games where you can jump and FPS games where you can't jump, and because Gears of War you can jump, but that's a third person shooter. That's because you were using the A button to snap to cover. But like
first person shooter, I cannot for the life of me think if there's one. The only one I could think of, it's a semi obscure indie game. It's Lovely Planet Arcade. In that game actually, no, I'm wrong. You can jump, but the jump is like very digital, like in a very deliberate way. It's like the game is almost like blocky in its level design. And so it's like going over gaps and stuff like that. So, or like picking up collectibles in the air. So never mind. That is a jump. So they all do. And they always will.
Every FPS game has a jump in it. We've established that if your game hasn't got a jump in it, it's not an FPS. That's the rules, folks. It's a missed like if it hasn't got jumps in it.
Maybe Rainbow.
Rainbow Six probably has
the old ones, especially probably don't.
Yeah, Vegas might not have jumps in it.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah, we'll find out. We'll do some research between after this episode.
Yeah.
But, you kill Victor.
Right.
And then you take his magic staff
It's the siphon, god damn it. Know the nomenclature.
The siphon, built by the Angelus. Yeah. And you stab it into your chest, right?
I really don't fucking get the logic of this object.
Was the logic of what's going on, yeah.
So Peevish earlier gets stabbed. He gets a little magic. Not all of it, but he gets some darkness. All right, sure, it transferred it. You get it and shove it in yourself, and the darkness is screaming no. And I don't, like, what are you supposed to do? Like, just... And also Johnny Powell earlier saying that if the darkness gets the siphon, it's really bad. I don't understand.
Yeah, he was like, oh yeah, the darkness wants it for what?
I don't know. I don't fucking know, because he's like, he's fucking upset. And then it allows you to free Jenny, you know?
Yeah, well, you go back to the mental hospital one last time, and then you manage to escape onto the roof, which is where your poor Darkling friend dies. No. He gets hit by sunlight so hard that he's like, I can't go on from here. You're gonna have to go on without me, Jackie.
Go on, monkey.
I was like, well, go on, monkey. I was like, I thought this was all like a kind of a fake construct anyway. So is that real light or whatever? Yeah. I guess.
That is actually a good point. Like, the darkness can create light? Is that?
Yeah, it can create dangerous light that kills Darklings, I guess. I don't know. You go onto the roof. Jenny follows you up into orderlies, and she's just like, Jackie, don't do... Well, again, it's the Matrix Awakens kind of, you're gonna... To exit this world, I need to kill myself. And it's just like, don't do it, Jackie. This is actually real. And then the game goes, do you want to finish the game, or do you want to finish the game quicker? And it's like, oh no, I want to finish the game properly. So you jump off the roof, and the illusion collapses around you, and you're in hell. Not as in, oh, it's a zone that looks like hell. No, the Darkling tells you earlier, this is hell, and you're now in hell, where Jenny is. Cool, I guess.
So you're dead? Like, that...
Maybe?
Like, I'm like, did you die when you stabbed yourself with that giant siphon? Like, can you just go to hell? Can you just visit? Like, I don't know. It's whatever.
This is I guess this is maybe this is what the World War I zone was hiding in the first game, was you never walked far enough, so you didn't see cartoon hell behind it.
See, in that one, it didn't feel like it was a, this sort of god and devil, like, metaphysical, no, it was just like, oh, this is like a psychological construct with this being that, like, that has you caught up and sort of trapped in your traumas. Like, it was very metaphorical and allegorical, whereas this is this is hell. Oh, okay.
Like, the Darkness one is more interesting. Like, as I think we said on the episode, of just like, it's not angels and deep, because in the comics, it's like he's not the Darkness isn't technically evil. It's the manifestation of chaos in the universe, and like.
And they mention that in this, but like, when you say hell, I'm gonna give association to that.
What they kind of just say that, like, oh, the darkness is evil, ergo hell, but he's also chaos, ergo chaos is evil, and it's like, you're doing a bit too much simplification here, but okay, I get it. It's an FPS game. We got to get to the end, to the extent of, even though you go to hell and you fight demons. It turns out that hell has special hell versions of guns that you had on the surface. but they have like a 1911 and an AK-47, but they're covered in like coral, and they're called like Ebenezer and stuff like that.
They're like Cronenberg. Like, I thought it was like, it looks like meat to me,
Oh
like
yeah, no, yeah, they do. They look like well, it's kind of flesh. Well, I said coral because it's kind of fleshy colored and spiky, but no, yeah, they are more like if somebody had made an FPS game based on Existence.
Exactly.
This is what the other guns would look like that you could shoot people with.
You've got like basically just an M16 made of meat.
Yeah, you get an M16 that's covered in flesh. and it's called like the Nosferatu or something. Right. Cool, fine, who cares? Like, this is pure corridor shooting until the end, where you circle strafe around the pillar where Jenny... So Jenny as well is, she like to go with a kind of a character assassination thing, you do get a glimpse of her early on in this zone. She looks like the fucking damsel in distress at the end of Dragon's Lair, where her body is like, I can't say it's a ripped dress would be giving it too much credit. It looks like she's covered in wet toilet.
Yeah,
barely, like just enough to get away with not getting a nudie rating for this game.
Oh, that's good.
God.
Yeah, she's just the torn up whatever, and she's just like crucified. She's not literally crucified, but that's
she has her arm again. She's like standing, but she has her arms in chains, like a damsel in like, "Oh, Jackie, help me," kind of thing. It's please, please, and it's like we watched fucking To Kill a Mockingbird on the television when you were alive, and now you have been reduced to fucking Betty Boop. Okay,
yeah, fair enough.
And the way that you complete the game is that you have to shoot 2 of her chains, and that's, well, I mean, I guess there's wave after wave of enemies coming after you, but that's it.
Right. Yeah, they're not difficult. They're not armored really, so they go down pretty quick. I mean, I honestly kind of appreciated that, because it was like we just had a big arena fight in the ballroom, and then like, the boss fight, which had a decent amount of guys, a few waves.
It's a victory lap. And I mean, like when you think of the last game where it's like the last thing you do is kill Uncle Paulie, but I guess at that point you've also given into the darkness, but you just get this nice moment where you're with Jenny.
Yeah. Like
this is kind of like, it's almost like a photo negative where it's the same image, but like they've kind of the contrast and the sort of the values have been changed massively, where it's like, the final boss is you fight cult, like, and again you kind of get what you want, which is that the cultists won't be coming after you anymore because you've killed all of them, I guess, and their leader, so they're gone. You get the siphon back, which is good. You avenged Aunt Sarah earlier and Frankie or Eddie, so I guess that's all fine. So literally the last thing you can do now is you can get what you always wanted, which is you get to get Jenny back. Which I guess you do, because you embrace her in hell, where she was being kidnapped by the darkness, I guess.
But
and then you hug, and then you get credits, and I stood up and I did a Khan style standing ovation for the credits after finishing this game, because I had so much fun playing it, and plus the credits was only like 10 minutes long because it had a development team of 50 people, and then like the rest of the credits were like 2K marketing, 2K Germany localization. It's like, okay guys, all right. But then, much like a Marvel film, there's an after credits scene where it gives you there's an on-screen prompt for, to let Jenny go, because like, you could stay there forever if you wanted to, hugging her, but eventually you have to go, Jackie. Which you do. And I just expected the game to be like, okay, well, back to Earth with you, back to, I don't know, running coke out of, Kingston or whatever in New York City. But no. So Jenny, I guess, had been so they sort of tease this a tiny bit when you go to the amusement park, and she keeps calling you rat face, and she's like, I got a secret for you, Jackie, but I want me to tell you if you go for all these rides. But then she never really tells you what the secret is, or maybe she did, but it was I love you, and I couldn't remember that. Okay, it's that. But okay, fair enough. Well, 10 out of 10 rating, guys. But they kind of, the way that they play it off is that like, is there more going on here, kind of thing. And it turns out there is, because Jenny then goes, all right, Jack, I gotta go. And he's like, wait, where are you off to? And then her eyes start glowing, and she sprouts angel rings and horns and sexy body armor, and then she starts speaking with an alien voice, and does she say that she's the Angelus?
Yes.
At that point,
or if she doesn't, that is the truth of it. Like, it is fully implied.
Yes. Yeah. Like, I'm an agent of the Angelus, and it's like, hey, thanks for putting a dent in the darkness, Jackie. Now we can win this war. Anyways, I'm leaving you in hell. Bye. And she flies up into the air. leaving you stuck in hell, and it's like obvious, like kind of fucking what do they call it, like God of War 2 style. Yeah, of course they're making this a trilogy. We'll end it. We'll wrap this up in the next game style ending, which this game's now 12 years old. I don't know if that sequel's coming anytime soon, but hey ho. But yeah, so this was shit from the comic book, which again, really? This, I guess this was more of a direct adaptation of stuff, but yeah, so Jenny is the Angelus, who is like the Angelus and the Darkness were the ones that created the Witchblade, which is what the Witchblade comic stuff is, which is where the darkness comes from anyways. I don't know. Yeah, very weird. Yeah, not a... Starbreeze, I don't think would have done an ending like this, I guess, is how I'm feeling on that.
Yeah, no, it's like... I guess it's sort of similar to the first one's ending. Like, the first one's ending is like, as we talked about, like, you were sort of fated to be taken control of and lose yourself to the darkness, and like you can't get Jenny back. You know, you have that little moment, and then it's like, nope, sorry, you're fucked. And I guess this is kind of that too. It's like you are just sort of destined to never be with Jenny. Like you are, you know, you are both vessels for the opposite kind of things. Jackie is darkness, he's the mob guy, he's whatever, and then Jenny is the... I mean, in the first game, they talk about Jenny that she's like very innocent, you know? Whereas I don't know if, I mean, I guess Angelus feels more, as we had talked about, the dichotomy of chaos and order. That's what they talk about Angelus as. So it's like, is this a full on good thing that she, like, did Jackie do a good thing and now he just has to live with the darkness? Is the darkness still alive? Like, I don't know.
That like it's an ending that they just leave wide open to eventually get answered in DLC or a sequel.
Right.
Two things, neither of which happened. I mean, I guess Digital Extremes didn't. I mean, Digital Extremes put out Warframe the year afterwards, and that's all they've done ever since. But I guess 2K never really saw it as a thing of like, maybe they had in their mind that they would do another one, depending how the sales of this one went, which... From what I understand, the sales of this game were okay with a small o. Like they did fine, but like nothing that set the world on fire. And again, considering that the year afterwards is when BioShock Infinite and GTA 5 come out, published by 2K. Like,
oh yeah,
fucking GTA 5 has been their focus ever since. Well, that and the basketball games have been their focus ever since.
Right.
So yeah, so that's what I mean. Like, I don't. Like, to kind of go back to things, I don't hate the story in this, but it is just one of those things of like, you compare it to one and it's just like, so the first one is mature. It's like, it's exactly like if you're like somebody who writes video game essays or whatever, it's what all video games should try and strive to be. Like, it's on a level of maturity of like Ico or like Silent Hill 2. Versus this where
that's
it's just
a little...
I don't know. I'd argue that the Darkness one isn't. I would say the Darkness one is in conversations with Silent Hill 2. They're in different social classes, but like they've had conversations with each other.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, I'm like, it is not as good of a story, right? Like you can.
Oh God, no.
Okay, that's all. You just like how they tell the story and its commitment to telling that story,
but also just the fact that like they want to do more than just be video game. Like they want to do more than just be like damsel in distress, thumbs up kind of. You know, you got the big boy kind of fucking platformer games ass stories.
Yeah,
they want to do maturity. They want to like go for different tones than what you expect in like most games.
Okay,
whereas this is like fully embraced video game as video game, which is fine. And like I was saying earlier, well, I didn't say this earlier, but this is kind of what I'm thinking of. Like, you can see the version of this game which is like way worse.
Oh
like,
yeah.
If you were in a bad mood and you played this, you'd be like, oh, this sucks because it's like, oh, you just shoot people and blah, 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 like whatever. But no, like all the like was said of the first game where it's more than the sum of its parts. It's more like every part of this game is incredibly well polished, but what they amount to is ultimately lesser than the first game.
I mean, yeah, like if you're trying to look at it as like a cohesive piece of thoughtful art, I agree.
Yes.
But like, you know, like I don't go to every game for the same kind of
absolutely
thing.
not.
You know, yeah.
No, and I think if you were to like then like what I said earlier about the fact that if I had to choose between this or like the first game, I was to go for this. And I think that's just mostly down to, well, I'm always going to be more of the mechanics. Like when I play a video, like if I wanted a good story, I would usually go to a book. Or if I wanted like good presentation, I would go to a film. Or like if I wanted to see good performances, I would go to the like, and you know, that's like, I don't really totally think like this because that's a stupid thing to say, like, oh, only books can have good stories because it's they're literally just writing. Like films can have like the mechanics of how films tell stories is different to how books tell stories. Books, you have to use your imagination, you know, all that sort of stuff. And even in the delivery of text, of how punctuation is used and stuff like that, you get a different tone out of it versus, say, the mechanics of how you make a film where you use, like, you know, different lenses and different lighting, even how they like the actors kind of present, whatever. With games, I will always be more impressed by like how stories are told mechanically or through like subtraction or abstraction or whatever, which the Darkness one does in really interesting ways. But the thing is that I'm always going to be there for like what feels good in the hand, what's going to keep me gripped. And I think that the second game ultimately is a better because it's a better FPS game than the first one. Ultimately, I like it more. And like, if I had to rank them for bullet time, the FPS podcast that analyzes the shooters that miss their marks, this doesn't. Like this hits its mark way harder than the first game does. The thing that undoes it ultimately, I think, is just if the story was a time. But then, like, again, if I'm going to an FPS game, I'm not really expecting a good story. It's just more that if it has one, fantastic. Like, you know, that's to be appreciated. It's more that I want the shooting to be really good. And it is in this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no. I mean, would you say this is... I mean, maybe there's other games that you like more, but would you say this is the best game you've talked about on Bullet Time? Like,
the thing is that I said that about the Darkness 1, though, last episode.
Well, you said this is better.
I mean, that's FPS, true. At least. Okay. This is... Oh, God. Because Tie Splitters 2 is really good.
Oh, right.
This... But I like playing this more than, like... I mean, Tie Splitters 2 has better levels, though. But the gunplay in this feels way better. The combat stuff feels way better in this. You know what? Controversial. I'm going to say yeah. I'm going to say this probably is the best FPS game I've played for this podcast. But
good man. Good man. I mean, I haven't played them all, but I agree.
Yeah, no, this is, like I said earlier, where it's like the Three Kings are this, Titanfall 2 and Doom. Modern AAA FPS games, the Three Kings are this, Doom 2016 / Doom Eternal, Titanfall 2.
Yeah.
I would find it difficult to kind of argue against that. To factor in indie stuff, which may be doing more interesting stuff, whatever. As an FPS, I would say that. As a video game, maybe Darkness 1 slightly pushed.
Yeah.
Like, I think what I've written... so what I've written in my notes is that, like, if you used to ask me which is my favorite, I would say Darkness 2. If you would ask me which is a better game, I would say Darkness 1. But those are, like... That's the difference between... me making like I would recommend them both, but if somebody said I can literally only play one, but I do have the capabilities to play the Darkness 1, I would say that.
Yeah, it feels kind of like, do you want to play Tetris or like Disco Elysium? It's like, what?
Oh yeah,
you know, like that's kind of how it feels. It's like it's hard to. I guess you just have to know your like the audience or like who you're recommending it to. Like, do they want a story and like get engrossed, or are they just here to murk people?
No, and it's funny because I know that they covered both Darkness games on Something Rotten, and I think that like for the audience that listens to that podcast, the Darkness one is like because you would put the Darkness again, like I said with Silent Hill 1 and Silent Hill 2 and Ico.
Yeah,
like the Darkness is very much in that realm of like intelligent, thoughtful, you know, games that kind of want to say more, that, you know, they want to subvert, they want to kind of like directly comment on what they are in a way that this doesn't. But this is way more about like the immediate thrills of the genre. Like, if you were to play an FPS game to see what FPS games are good at, you would play Darkness 2, not Darkness 1.
If you want to see what video games can do, you play the Darkness 1. To see how storytelling in games can be like enhanced by the structure and like subverting the tropes of video games, you play the first one. If you want to play a video game to see what video games do best, I would say the second one. Yeah.
But I mean, ultimately, I would just say to people, play both.
Yeah, if you can.
Yeah, but if you can play both, and if you literally only have a PC, then hopefully at the end of this episode, because it is fucking cheap, just go buy and play Darkness 2. Do we want to very quickly talk about the Vendetta stuff? I mean, not that there's a lot of juice to it, but it is just kind of like, they're basically remixes of levels that are in the main game, but you play as like different characters, and they have, I mean, they are like, it isn't just like, oh, you know, this character has like the swipe ability, and then this one has like the eating hearts. No, like they do have like genuinely different things. Like they have like I played as the Scottish guy who has like he has a big cleaver that he can fight people with, and he also starts with a shotgun, I think, as well.
Oh, okay.
But you get like different abilities and whatever with him, which is fun. You know, it's like, it gets a little bit more juice out of the game, and because it's like, that's where the first game had a multiplayer mode, which neither of us played because the servers aren't up or whatever for them. So like, and it is just bog standard team deathmatch. This is a more interesting thing of their co-op. So like, you just run through missions with people. They're remixed versions of the levels from the first game where you get different objectives and slightly different layouts, and the plot does kind of, again, much like with Bioshock 2's multiplayer, where the plot does kind of feed into great Bioshock lore, the plot lines of these missions do run counter to what's happening with the story. Like the first mission that you do, you rescue Johnny Powell to go and take him to Jackie.
I did that
basically. Yeah. No, I did that one as well. They're fine. That's my review of them. They're cute. They're okay.
Like, if you just want to have more of the combat, like, you can't go wrong. Like, I guess, like, I'd be curious to try playing it with another person. I don't, you know, because the one character I had like, you could buff your team, and I was like, oh, that'd be cool to maybe try. I'm sure it's not that deep or whatever, but I'd see. I don't know if you can play co-op anymore. Like, do you think you could just join someone's game on Steam?
I think you can, yeah, because I think probably why they went for co-op as well is that rather than having private servers, it's just peer-to-peer.
Right.
So
shit.
Probably makes it easy.
Yeah.
Could have done. If I had thought, we could have done it for this episode. But you know what, though? At this point, it's a bullet time trope that we don't do any multiplayer minutes. That's what people love coming to us for. It's just the pure single-player experience of we much like we were talking about, you know, Darkness 1 is more of a is a better video game, while this is a better FPS. You know, our podcast is also aimed at people who may not have friends but just want to play FPS games.
They're not very good people, but they are good gamers. That's the audience.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. Put a nice little stamp on that. Now, the original, so Darkness 1 got is at an average of 82 on Metacritic. Do you want to guess what 2's?
Bro, it's got to be less. It's got to be 72.
You're saying 72. Well, I'll give you this. You are right. It is less, but not by much. It's 80.
Oh, good for the Darkness 2. I'm kind of surprised.
Good for you, Darkness 2. Yeah, you're literally only... Darkness 2 is only 2 points off the Metacritic of the original Darkness. I know the reviews are pretty positive as well on it. Like, but they've all kind of said the same as us, which is that, like, it has more sort of, like, the combat and the AI is better, but, like, it's still... It doesn't quite have the juice that the original Darkness 1 has. So, like, Electronic Gaming Monthly gave it a 90 and said, better AI and combat mechanics than the first Darkness, gorgeously painted environments kind of a question mark on that one. And the same old omnipotent snake-headed dark force make for one heck of a gameplay combination.
I like how the game looks. I think there are some, not every area is super beautiful, but I like the density of the design of like the
I would say it is. I do like the density. Like I was thinking of that first level where you get out of the restaurant and then you're out on kind of like the streets in little. I mean, I assume it's probably Chinatown is where you're at, but like yeah, that scene is like super dense and has like a lot of cool, street signs and stuff like that. It is. I mean, gorgeously is a push, is all I would say.
Yes.
But it does look good.
Yeah.
And, it has the nice thing that most cell shading stuff does, which is that it's going to age relatively well.
Yeah, it's just kind of low res textures, but that's fine. I guess like
Yeah.
it would be nice if the game looked like the haunted house section. I kind of wish the game looked like that more, like really deep, rich colors. Like just go all in on, just very stark color contrast and bright pinks and reds and like your tentacles are very. I like how they look, and it's like I wish the world was more purple and stuff.
Yeah, they got a kind of a gooey sort of like purple tinge to it.
Yeah.
Which is neat. But I mean, I would say this as well, is that like if I was, if we were to make if we were to like remake this one, and I wouldn't change much, but the main thing would be, well, if we're doing cell shading, exaggerate people's looks a bit more, like the proportions as well,
Yeah.
like especially
especially the enemies.
some of the characters that they bring out, because like again, all the women in the whole house look like Mad Moxie from
They do.
Borderlands, which is fucking bonkers. Versus Jenny, where it's like she kind of looks like she does in the original, but I can't remember her eyes being that massive. Maybe they were though.
No, I'm sure they're a bit bigger, but yeah, it feels almost, it's weirdly like 1-to-1. Excuse me.
Yeah, but then again, that's why I said like it's the characters that you recognize from the last game, like Sarah and Jimmy the Grape, where it looks like fucking Linklatter's Waking Life versus Johnny Powell, who was designed for this game, or like all the cultist guys. They look really good.
Yeah.
So again, like you could go in, you could kind of exaggerate proportions a lot. Like again, like I think of what's it called, Dishonored, where they said that one of the art, like when they were figuring out the art direction, one of the concepts that they came up with was that for all the men in that world, one of the artists had like this old picture book when they were a kid, which was like illustrations of pirates who all had these like really exaggerated kind of like facial sort of like exaggerations and deformities and stuff like that. And they were like, well, yeah, no, every man should look like this in the world, where it's sort of like, crooked noses or like really pointy chins, which makes them more distinct. But then Dishonored also has the issue that, and all women look the same. They're all super attractive. They all look like Mad Moxie. And it's like, okay. But then Dishonored 2 does kind of fix that a little bit. You do get a lot of like non, standard looking women and stuff like that, which is good. But yeah, that would be my note to if they ever remastered the Darkness 2, is just like, really push those polys, make some gruesome faces. That'd be cool.
Yeah,
especially for the mob guys who surround, like Fat Tony. They should have like gave him like a really small forehead and like really wide jowls. Really funny. But hey IGN gave it an 80, and it says, despite some problems with polish and a story that takes time to develop into something great.
Was it
barely
like
polished, isn't it?
beginning?
I know. The Darkness 2 ends up as an early treat in the new year. Oh yeah, because this came up quite early in the year. The narrative elements help the pacing considerably, breaking up Jackie's engaging and brutal murder fests. Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that.
Yeah.
I would say, again, I think it's as he said. If you replayed this, the pace breaking elements would probably wind you up a little bit. But on the first playthrough, they're great.
Yeah, right, for sure. I don't know what they mean by polish. I feel like this game is. I mean, maybe at the time on Xbox 360 it ran poorly or was buggy or something, but
yeah, they may have patched this for the and that's the thing as well, is like going from the first game, which is like 20 FPS on a PS3, and then playing this which is like fucking slick as a brick, like 60 or higher, is like, oh yeah, this feels way better.
Oh, 100%. God damn.
But then I can't really imagine playing the first game at like 6. Like playing the first game at 60 would feel weird.
It's nice. I did it. It was nice. I recommend it.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. All right, and then never mind. Then strike me down. Meanwhile, the lowest review, and it's not that low, was a 70 from Games TM, a British games magazine, that said, if the Darkness 3 were to combine the best of the first and second games, we'd have ourselves a winner for the ages. Yeah. As it stands, we have a game definitely worth a playthrough, but probably not worth tripping over yourself to slap down cash for, which don't disagree with that either.
Yeah.
But I think that goes with a thing of like, yeah, like if the Darkness 1 is, you know, is thesis, and then the second one is antithesis, then yeah, if the third one was the synthesis, then like it would be the best of all worlds. But then I would wonder, would it literally just be as easy as just taking the gameplay, you know, the sort of the combat stuff of the second game and just putting it in the story in the world of the first game? Would that just be enough, I wonder? I mean,
yeah, it'd be its own beast. I think you could do that. It would just be like the tone and the art style and the writing and all the other presentational aspects would have to be reverted back, or I don't know, maybe not darker, but yeah.
I mean that's kind of what I'm wondering as well, is that like if you did a second one, if you did a third one, would you stick with the cell shading and then try and like I said, with like a Dishonored and trying to exaggerate stuff, or would you try and go back to the photorealism of the first one, or would you try and split the difference like say an Arcane game like Dishonored? You know?
That's what I would.
I would love more games that look like Dishonored anyways. So like, you know, that would be fine by me. But like, I think, yeah, if you did a third one, you'd maybe want like, because the linear levels are good, but you would want like a slightly meaty hub, which could be like, I don't know, like a really like a block of New York or something, where you could do, hey, oh, it's the prosciutto man. Jackie, somebody's stealing all my prosciutto. Can you help me out with that? Yeah, sure thing. You know, just do these like little day in the life story missions of stuff, but then
this would be like an open world game then.
But that's the thing, like I
don't want it to be, but the reality.
No, I know I don't want it to be either. I would want it to be like you have a hub like the mansion, but it's just slightly bigger than that.
Oh, okay, I see.
And then maybe rather than what it usually is, which is you go to the lift and Vinny's like, "Hey, you ready to go on the mission, Jackie?" Maybe you go to the trains. Maybe you go to like a train stop, and then like you choose which missions you want to go on by like, I don't know, clicking on a map or whatever, like the Punisher game.
Oh, that would be good.
And then you get on the train, and it takes you to a linear mission. Yeah, I'd be fine with that. Yeah. But just a tiny bit of like just a little, you know, a block about the size of, you know, where Aunt Sarah's house is in the first one. Not like 4 of those, or like 5 or 6 of those, which is in like the first game. Just one of those.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as a little area that you could, you know, just chill out in, I think would be nice.
No, yeah, I agree. But something I wanted to comment on was that, I guess the review, but just like, I feel like, I don't know, maybe people were sort of inundated with Call of Duty style first-person shooters, but I think this game just aged better because we don't get games like this anymore. You know, we don't.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's kind of like you know, looking back at like a Transformers or like early 2000s Marvel projects and being, you know, like it's partially the nostalgia and partially like new context where that kind of stuff isn't made. So you appreciate what you had before, you know, like at the time, I'm sure my ass probably would have thought this game was like lame and derivative because I was like into reading reviews and kind of, you know, like if I watched a Yahtzee video, I'd kind of side with him. But if I hadn't, I'd be like with the critical consensus and probably just think, oh, this game's whatever. But like as you age and realize that trends are changing and the money isn't always there, like you can fully appreciate like this is kind of a weird shooter for the time. Like I don't think a lot of shooters were as active like this, you know, in terms of like how the gameplay is, how the combat is. And it was prophetic to games that came later in a weird way. So
oh yeah, like it's funny, like a game that I forgot to mention while we were talking about this game, which feels like it's kind of doing a similar thing to this. Not Gunslinger, because I mean I think Gunslinger does this, but it slightly came out at the right time. But did you ever play Bulletstorm?
I've wanted to. I own that, and I want to.
Okay. But potentially I might pencil you in if you want to. If you want to play, maybe we can cover it on Bullet Time, because no one I know wants
Really?
none of the guest hosts, nobody else wants to play Bullet Time.
You don't want to kick people into spike walls?
No, but I won't say Hugh, but like comedy in games seems to be like a big hurdle for a lot of people.
Just ignore it.
And apparently not that easy. Apparently you can't just log off, as Tyler the Creator used to say about that stuff. But no, like I don't love Bulletstorm, and Bulletstorm does kind of overstay its welcome a little bit. Like I think this is the better version of it, because it is just kind of, because like again, like I can imagine people complaining about the length of this game, but I think if the Darkness 2 had been like artificially extended to like even 6 hours or whatever, and that would be, and when I say artificially extended, I mean like they wouldn't add like 2 extra levels or whatever. Maybe they would force you to go back to previous levels and kind of do the same thing, but with like a different boss or whatever. That would like totally burn any goodwill this game would have, I think. Even if the combat, because I think the combat peaks like basically an hour before the end of the game anyway.
Right.
Like again, like Doom 2016, I had the thing with that game where it's the same that I had with Portal, which was the moment that I said, this game might be overstaying its welcome a little bit. Boom, boss fight, it ended.
Mm-hmm.
Like Doom, the moment that the combat became too familiar in Doom 2016, I fought the brain boss, and that was that.
Right.
Like it knew the moment to finish. And Portal was exactly the same as that. Like the moment that I was like, I'm gonna this, like I feel like you've squeezed all the juice from this. They said, yeah, we know. Here's the GLaDOS fight.
Right.
Which I feel like this never quite feels like it gets to the point of like all the juice is squeezed. Like you could maybe have got like one more level out of it, which if it had been like set in I don't know, like an aquarium or something, or like, you know, a cool New York location.
Throw guys into the shark tanks and have the sharks eat them.
Oh yeah, or like you could shoot the glass and you know, the room fills. Well, I mean, I guess they'd have to build a bunch of physics stuff. Yeah, to do that, so maybe not. Maybe you go to Central Park. Oh yeah, maybe you go to Central Park. Yeah, you go to Central Park Zoo. There we go.
Throw them to the lions. Yeah.
Yeah, and like maybe like some tigers escape and they're running around or stuff. Yeah,
that'd be sweet.
Or maybe like you go into the bat cages, and because like obviously you know, they're nocturnal animals, you can be in like full darkness mode.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, there we go. Nothing but good ideas here. But like Bulletstorm has some cool juice to it, where it's like, I think at the time they were trying to position this as like the anti-Call of Duty, where like Modern Warfare had come out and it's very much building on like what Half-Life 2 did, where it's, you know, it's a story, you know, it's an adventure, it's a story, it's a film without any cuts that you get to play, sort of thing. And I think one way that people were looking at a way to compete that was like, why don't we embrace old kind of arcadey game feel and like, you know, bring back big numbers and stuff like that, and maybe try and make them diegetic to the world like they do in, because I think in Bulletstorm the plot is that like you're on a planet that used to be like an amusement, like it used to be like a big safari park essentially, full of like bandits and stuff, and so the number readouts are actually part of like some system of, you need to get so many points to kind of like work ahead. A bit like Mad World, but not as on the nose as it is in Platinum Games' Mad World, basically. Right. Whereas in this is like, the number, nobody actually see, you the player see the numbers, but they're not actually diegetic to anything that Jackie is doing, I suppose. But like, yeah, as you said, like nobody really, I think at the time maybe it was just kind of seen as a bit too odd of like, oh, this isn't like the FPS games that I'm used to. But then as people start to get a bit sick of that, like a lot of indies and a lot of kind of like these quirkier FPS games then started to gain traction a little bit. Because again, to go back to Call of Juarez Gunslinger, like I remember when that game came out in I think 2014. Yeah, 2013. It came out in 2013. Yeah. And so it was going up against Modern Warfare 3, I think. It was going up against The Last of Us and fucking BioShock Infinite, where I think people are just starting to get a little bit burnt out on the FPS genre. And so this little game comes out where it's all cell shaded and it's about cowboys and it has like, you know, points coming off. People go, oh, this is cute. Why can't people make like full-sized FPS games that are like this? Like, you know? But even then, kind of celebrating the fact that it was a little bit smaller and neater was like, oh, people could just make small games. Why don't they do that kind of thing?
And here we are.
and then here we are in the year 2024, where they still haven't been able to figure out how to make small games.
Right, unless you're a independent team.
Yeah, or you're, I mean, Nintendo sort of are able to get away with it. Like, they don't grow beyond like 100 people on a project for the most part, which is like, that's the lower end of like AA at this point. Ubisoft kind of almost got away with it with doing their Ruby Art stuff, where that was made by like teams of 50 or 100. I mean, hate to give it to them, but Nexon, you know, the guys behind Crossfire and like you know, all those huge Korean MMOs, they put together a team to do independent indie projects like Dave the Dino.
Right, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and I mean, and the point of all that stuff is just the fact that the way that the games industry works at the moment is that it's the AAA pipeline requires specialization, as in you have texture artists and like physics programmers and stuff like that. You don't have what like in the olden days where maybe you might just have a single programmer or a single artist, or in the case of indie stuff like Balatro, you have one person who does all of that stuff.
Yeah. Right.
You don't fill a company full of one person that can make Balatro. You fill a company full of, say, like texture artists and stuff like that, because the idea is that because they focus on that one thing, they can get a AAA project out quicker, which is why they're able to turn Call of Duty around in like 3 years, rather than if one person tried to make a Call of Duty game, it would probably take them like 30 years.
Yeah, exactly. True.
Yeah. But I'm sure there's like there is a compromise that could be reached with stuff like that. But then, you know, there were companies like Roll7 that sort of did that with, you know, they made Ollie Ollie, but then they were able to make their first like proper big 3D game with Rollerdrome. But 2K shot them down because they were like, oh, this isn't profitable enough for us. So I don't know what the solution is. And because I would love more games like The Darkness 2, where again, looking at the studio for that, it was tiny at the time, like the team that worked on it, you know, but yeah, it's just AAA hasn't really got that capability anymore, and I don't know. I don't know how you fix it without like just completely resetting everything, which I feel like is kind of what we're looking at the moment.
That's definitely
a of games.
Yeah, it's definitely a potential outcome of all of this. I guess I'm just gonna play indie games and go where the interesting stuff is. You know, it's like there's so much stuff. I don't feel it necessary or reasonable to even complain. It's just you have to find what you're looking for now, and it takes some time. No. Steam isn't the perfect thing at recommending stuff, but just gotta dig.
I would say with indie stuff though, I do have that kind of worry as well. It's just like some projects do need money thrown at them, and like
true.
Some, like, just from what I understand, it's not a matter of like, oh, all the money out of AAA games is gone now because it went to indies. No, there's just no money.
No, right, and, like,
yeah. And like in the case of Balatro, that was developed over like 4 or 5 years, and that was being supplemented by that guy's full-time job. He was making it in his spare time. Yeah. Animal Well has been in development for like 8 years, and then and has only since got attention because it was picked up by Donkey. Whereas like there's thousands and thousands of games that are out there which might be, you know, could have taken a year to develop or 10 years to develop, and like they may never become successful. But like if you were to only expect indies to kind of fill your diet, it's like, yeah, but you could be waiting a long time for good games to come out, which if you're happy to do so, great, because there's like long RPGs, there's old games like this that you can get, which is fine. But yeah, as a solution to kind of the games industry as it is at the moment, where you need new releases every month, that's
No, I mean
that is untenable.
The thing is, I can't save the game industry. Like no individual outside of it can. So it's just like to people who are like I guess I'm worried, but I'm also just like I just got to do with what I can and give money to people who need it, right? Like if you buy a game, an indie game new, like that's gonna help someone pretty like materially versus buying the next God of War game, or you know what I mean? Like it just feels more like let's help the people out who did that 8-year project, you know, and like reward them so they can, you know, make another project or figure out, or just to say thank you, honestly, for making a good game.
Oh no, exactly. It feels like your money's going, like you can see where the money goes when you support like an independent creator versus like a larger team of people, I suppose.
Right. Yeah.
Speaking of which, if you want to help support this podcast, you can do so over at the Hot Side of Patreon. But hey, you know what? Let's round things out. We'll do the quiz.
Yeah.
Hey, so do you want to take a guess where, if it did, it qualified for the charts?
I assume it is on the charts in general, but is it in the top 10? I will say yes. I will say it's February. I will say it's rank 4.
Oh, you're very close. Right, it is third.
Damn it! I was gonna say that, motherfucker.
Yeah.
All right,
200,000 units sold.
Good on them.
First week. Good job, them. But it is competing against 2 games which were also new this week, and we're going to start with number 1. Is a role-playing game published by EA.
2012. Is it Dragon Age 2?
It is not Dragon Age 2. I'll give you this. It's not a BioWare RPG.
It's not a BioWare game. Okay. A EA RPG?
Yeah.
RPGs.
I will say they published it. It's not developed internally by them.
Oh, okay. Okay. That might not still help, but...
No. It's a big... It's not like an indie one as well. This is like a big-ass AAA project.
Okay. A big-ass AAA RPG published by Electronic Arts. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Oh, this is probably going to be so obvious.
I mean, I might be surprised if you don't remember this. This was like This was meant to be like a franchise starter, and it didn't go anywhere.
And it didn't go anywhere. Okay.
No. And this also has a really weird development behind it as well, which is a clue.
Oh man, give me another hint. I'm blanking.
Okay,
something kind of light.
I don't know if this would help at all. It was developed by a studio called 38 Studios.
Well, it tells me that it's not anyone I know. So that
okay.
helps. 38 Studio.
38 Studios. 38 Studios was founded by a baseball player called like Kurt Schilling or something, and this game was such a disaster that he was taken to court.
Kingdoms
by the
of
state
Amalur.
Island.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, it is Kingdoms of
story.
Amalur: Reckoning.
Yeah.
Okay,
right. Thank you.
So you remember that story about Kingdoms of Amalur?
But yeah, okay. That sold that well for a failure.
It did 400k copies in its first week.
Yeah.
It did nearly 500,000. So no, that's the thing. Kingdom of Amalur was like it did have a lot of steam behind, because I think people liked how it looked. It was because the soundtrack was done by the Banjo-Kazooie what's his face
Grant
guy?
Kirkhope?
Yeah, Grant Kirkhope had done all the music for it. The graphics kind of looked like sort of early, kind of colorful early World of Warcraft, but slightly higher res.
Right.
It kind of had, and it had like a bit of Fable juice behind it of like, it's not like a turn-based one. It's more like an action game, sort of third-person adventure-y RPG. Yeah, no, like there was excitement for Kingdoms of Amalur, weirdly, and EA had thrown a bunch of money behind it as well. But then, it turned out that they were basically, it was also kind of like a money laundering operation or something weird like that, which is why Rhode Island took them to court.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. I was like, some like government body got involved. Like, was it Canada? No, okay, it was Rhode Island.
It was the state of Rhode Island took him to fucking court, which is very funny. But yeah, there you go. Kurt Schilling, what's he up to nowadays? Maybe we'll have him on the pod. Maybe you could talk about Kingdoms of Amalur if we ever do an RPG.
Yeah, he's just playing ball with his son, you know? That's all he's doing.
Do you think he's like a really kind of, you know, like, yeah, he saw some of the ball back and forth with his son, but because he's like he used to be a professional, he just can't turn it off.
Oh yeah, he's
just like fucking pelting his son with fastballs.
Your form's fucking terrible. Your throw with your elbow. Okay, come here. Yeah. It's like a 20-minute demonstration of how to throw a ball.
It's like that episode of The Simpsons where they get into tennis and they start replacing like Marge is like, I'm not playing with you anymore, Homer. I'm replacing you with Bart. And then he's like, what do I do? And so Homer then starts playing tennis with like Serena Williams or something weird like that. And then the end of the episode is they just sub each other all out for like different famous tennis stars. But yeah, Kurt Schilling just replaces his son with, I don't know any famous. I don't know any current famous baseball players. I was going to say like Ken Griffey Jr., but he hasn't played in over 40
Here's
years.
the thing. I don't know any current players, so I would have been fine. Pete Rose. Just say Pete Rose. Why not?
There we go, Pete Rose. Yeah, he replaces his son with Pete Rose.
That's funnier. A gambling addict with the guy who got fucking in trouble with
he
the
got
government.
Investigated by the state of Rhode Island.
Perfect baseball team.
Very good. Nice. Number 2 in the charts is also new this week is a Nintendo 3DS game by Capcom.
Interesting. A Capcom 2012. Was it?
Dennis has made a video about it, I'm pretty sure.
Shit. Oh, okay. That always unlocks it. It's a Resident Evil game. It's Resident Evil Revelations.
It is. Isn't an Evil Revelations for the Nintendo 3DS. 121k copies sold so far.
Okay.
So it's technically ahead of the Darkness because I combined its sales across different platforms.
Oh, I see.
But, yeah. Revelations, by the way, always a funny thing. Capcom's sort of box art department, they never spell check anything. So the original first run print of Revelations on the spine, it says Revelatians. It has too many A's in it.
Wait, what? Like,
yeah, so rather than being spelt with 2 E's and 1 A, it's spelt with 2 A's and 1 E. So I think it's Revalatians.
Okay. I mean, you don't say you'd still say shuns. You'd still say revelations, maybe.
I mean, I don't know. The English language is funny.
Yeah, true that. I mean, you're part of the people who made it. I'm just the offspring. I'm
half Welsh.
Yeah,
the Welsh didn't have any involvement in it. I mean, I guess there might be a little bit of Celtic involved in the early formations of English, but it's mostly Nordic and Latin.
Yeah, that's true.
Number 3, as we've already said, is The Darkness 2 from Digital Extremes and 2K. Number 4 has been in the charts for 2 weeks, is a Square Enix JRPG.
Is it Final Fantasy 13? No. It's
Final Fantasy 13, but which one?
X2? No, wait, that doesn't make sense.
I'll give you that. It's Final Fantasy 13-2.
Right, yeah.
PS3. 58,000 copies sold so far. So good on that.
Damn, they were...
Number 5 has been in the charts for 14 weeks, is a game published by Activision.
Okay, so it's February. 14
so
weeks.
if it's been there for 14 weeks, probably would have came
months.
out October, November time.
I must say, it is a Call of Duty video game. Is that a correct statement?
I would say you are correct, but could you narrow that down to the specific?
Yeah, I will attempt. Okay, so I have to start from 2007. So Call of Duty 4 2007, World at War 2008, Modern Warfare 2009. What's Black Ops 2010? So then Modern Warfare 3 would be 2011. So what's 2012? Call of Duty.
Well, Well, no, well, hold on. Well, this is February 2012. There you go.
So
November
2011. Oh, Modern Warfare 3.
It is
Yay.
Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 across all platforms. 10 million copies sold.
Awesome.
I think it's technically an Infinity Ward game, even though like at that point everyone had left to form Respawn, right?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. So it was just like a fucking skeleton crew using that name. So people went, don't worry, it's still Infinity Ward. Don't worry about it.
And that's why everyone remembers it. That's why everyone loves that one.
That's true. Like the nostalgia critic, we remember it so you don't have to. Was it like the year after that Titanfall came out as well? Because that was like an Xbox One launch game.
Was Xbox One 2013? Yeah, I guess.
I think so, yeah.
God. Yeah. And yeah, I guess Titanfall was pretty early too.
Remember? Yeah. Titanfall might have even been first thing 2014, actually.
Oh, okay.
About it.
Yeah.
Man. Fucking Titanfall, though. Second one I've heard is pretty good.
The first one?
The second one is, I've heard is pretty good. Granted, I've heard the first one's okay as well. It's just that it's all multiplayer.
Right.
So once the servers go down, it's long gone. Not good. Tell you what isn't long gone, though. Number 6 in the charts, has been in the charts for 19 weeks, is a Nintendo Wii game by Ubisoft.
Fucking Rabbids? Is it Rabbids?
It's not the Rabbids, no. I would say as well, 4.2 million copies. So this was a
is it Just Dance?
big ass phenomenon. It is Just Dance. Actually, I'll give it to you. It's Just Dance free.
Okay. Yeah, I would not have been able to. I don't know when it started.
No, I was going to say, if that would have been a bit more, I just need to say which one, but yeah, it's Just Dance the third.
Sweet.
For Nintendo Wii. Speaking of fucking Wii gimmicks that don't exist anymore, number 7 has been on the charts for 65
Oh my god.
weeks. A game published by Majesco. 2.2 million copies sold. I'm going to try and narrow this down for you because like I wouldn't even know about this.
Oh, okay.
It's a video game tie-in to one of the biggest like exercise fads of this era.
Is it a Zumba game?
You know what? I'll give it to you. It is Zumba Fitness.
Yeah.
by Majesco. Wow. Good job pulling fucking Zumba from that.
I call her my aunt, but it's like my cousin, my dad's cousin. She was a Zumba instructor. And so I was aware of Zumba for a while. So, and they had a Wii, I feel. And so I made a connection there. I don't even know if they had the Zumba game. They probably did, but that's just, that's how the synapses collided to make me answer that question. That's what this all was leading to.
Yeah, it was all leading to discovering that there is Zumba in your family. I mean, granted, I think because my mom's gone for like every single like sort of fitness and dance fad as well. Like she did Zumba like during the time as well.
Really?
So, yeah, Zumba was a big deal.
Yeah.
Now nobody's who's doing Zumba now. Nobody.
It's a shame. It's a damn shame.
It is a damn shame. I'll tell you what isn't a fad though. It continues to always be popular. Number 8 in the charts for 19 weeks, published by 2K Games. It's a sports game.
Excuse me. So it's I mean,
I think we mentioned it earlier when we were talking about the only 2 games that 2K make.
Okay, so 2K, it's the basketball NBA 2K, I guess 12, because it was the year before, right? Yeah,
it is NBA 2K12. I think it is. Yeah, it's been on the charts for 19 weeks, but obviously it's always the year ahead season, isn't it? So yeah, so 1.3 million copies sold across all platforms.
Yeah,
good job then. Right. Number 9 has been on the charts for 14 weeks. One of the biggest games of 2011 is an RPG, a Western RPG.
Oh, I don't know this one. What? Was it released on November 11th, 2011? Oh, man.
I wonder.
It is Oblivion. No, it is Elder Scrolls Skyrim.
Yes, it is the Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim from Bethesda. 2.9 million copies sold so far. Now, here's a fun one. Finally, at number 10, has been in the charts for 67 weeks.
Jesus.
Microsoft published.
What?
One of the biggest fucking fads of the 2012s.
this a Kinect game or something?
It is a Kinect game. You know, we make it easy for you. The word Kinect is in the name of the game.
Oh, I probably don't even know. Like fucking.
Oh damn. I remember it being shown off at E3. This was when the gamers started to turn against Microsoft, because this was the year they showed off the Kinect, and they brought a bunch of kids out on stage, and they showed one of the activities from this game, which I believe was like they were in like a yellow dinghy, and they were like fucking rolling back and forth to try and balance.
Fucking Kinect Sports.
Oh, it's not
Damn.
Kinect Sports.
Right. Kinect Adventures.
It is Kinect Adventures with an exclamation mark.
I threw that out of my ass. Okay, all right.
Which I don't know if that was developed internally by Microsoft. I think it might have been a second party did it, but 9.6 million copies sold.
That's insane to me. I didn't know Kinect was like got on like that. Like I thought
Kinect was gigantic. Like that's the thing when people like look back at this era and go, "What did Microsoft do Kinect? Nobody liked it." No, Kinect was fucking like those first 2 years of Kinect, 2012, end of 2011, 2012, 2013, peak Kinect era. That is why the Xbox One went all in on it, because they were like, oh, well, people obviously want to upgrade to the console, which has a better Kinect in it. No, did not give a fuck.
did not give a fuck. Yeah, they
did not give a shit.
That's crazy.
So like Kinect Adventures was huge because of like that's the way. It wasn't. I think that might have been a pack in with the device itself, but no, Dance Central, fucking humongous. Like, I'm sure if like somebody did a list, it's probably one of the best selling Xbox games of all time.
Yeah,
it was that big.
And like, I'm sure Just Dance is better on a Kinect. Like that's the thing. Like with the Wii, I've played some Just Dance, and with the Wii mode, it's just you just kind of hope that it reads your movement right. But like if it can read your whole body and knows you're doing the choreography, then.
But here's the thing: like Ubisoft, I don't even think knew about like Microsoft for some. This was either they had bought them for a while, or they brought them as a second party. But Dance Central was done by Harmonix.
Oh shit!
AKA a developer that's still. I mean, they're owned by fucking Epic.
Yeah.
Which is kind of scary because that doesn't bode well for them. But I always feel sorry for Harmonix because it's like the genre of games that they're really good at making are the most volatile ones. Because it's just like, yeah, we're really good at working with licensed music, one of the most expensive fucking things, and one of the things that has like the least amount of returning games. And it's just like, ugh. But yeah, obviously Guitar Hero, Rock Band, and then they did Dance Central for Microsoft, and it was a fucking absolute stonker sales wise, so good on them. And yeah, they were able to kind of beat off Ubisoft at their own game, basically.
I'd love to beat off Ubisoft, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What a lovely crass thing to say at the end of this 3.5 hour episode of Blood.
It's like I'm a little Darkling, you know what I mean? I'm keeping that vibe up.
Oh yeah, the Darkling I feel like would make jokes about that. I mean the closest he gets to is just farting and peeing, I guess. He doesn't talk about anything dirtier than that.
Weirdly.
Yeah. I can't even remember I think the rating might be like a 15 or whatever, but that might probably not. It might be an 18 because it's like full of like fucking blood and gore.
You rip a man's heart out. I don't think they want.
Yeah, that's true. You do open a man's chest like a spatchcock and then pull it, and then you don't like saying pull his heart out sounds like it was kind of aggressive. But just
I guess
Jackie just very awkwardly just kind of puts his hand in there and then just slowly pulls it out like
that's true.
He's trying to pick up like a baby bird who's like falling out of the nest to put it back.
That's just because they didn't want to animate like ripping internal like veins and stuff like that. It was like it comes out. It just very simply slots out.
He just simply he's just like quickly yanks it out. But he had very weak arteries, that man. They just ripped like tissue paper. Ironically, what fucking Jenny was wearing throughout this game, like she was in Dragon's Lair.
Yeah.
But hey ho. Zach, thank you very much for coming back to talk about The Darkness 2, a game that I think both of us like, but have conflicted feelings of it in relation to The Darkness 1.
Correct.
I mean, I don't know. It has been 12 years. Like it was only 5 years between 1 and 2, so it would be a bit weird if they decide to do the Darkness 3 now, but I don't know. I'd like to, if it's as good as the first two, I'd like to see it, I guess. But I don't know, who would you even get to develop it is the thing. I mean, probably in our minds, like give it to an indie developer or something like the Zemanskis would probably do well with it. But
yeah, and I know Night Dive is trying to do a remake, or like try and sort of port it, whatever their remake, quote unquote, just kind of get it onto. Yeah,
we say that on the last episode that Night Dive are trying to get the rights for Darkness 1, so yeah, they can bring it to PC finally, which would be nice.
So that could re-spark some interest and ignite someone a 2K, I guess, if they still have the rights to the IP.
Maybe, yeah. Yes, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, I suppose. Yeah. But until then, is there anything you'd like to promote or have people have a look at? Anything of yours? I
just want to say thank you, everyone, if you've listened through the Darkness series, as I think both are like nearly 4 hours, if not more.
Oh yeah.
If you got this far, you're a trooper. I hope your commute has been good. Your day at work has been good. Your like hard session of lovemaking has been good. That's when I listen to podcasts the most.
I'm just imagining, like in the 80s and 90s, you had like Kenny G and like early R&B, but now there's just like a whole, just people our age, just having sex, and it's just like you and me mumbling in the background about like, the show's pretty good, it's pretty good, kind of like trying to awkwardly string thoughts together about this game while children are being conceived.
Right. I mean,
that'd be exciting.
When I do it, I just put the earbuds in too. Like I don't even like just like it's just for me, The wireless ones, of course.
Oh, I know you're joking, but like that would be like such a sociopath move. just somebody going onto Reddit like, hey, like my girlfriend says it's weird that I have earbuds in while we're having sex. Is that weird?
That's like the new Patrick Bateman. That's what he would do.
Oh yeah, Patrick Bateman 10,000% would listen to podcasts while he's having sex with women.
Right. Like the fact that he didn't just have the headphones on when he did it is kind of surprising in retrospect.
I mean, back in those days, cables were probably a lot weaker. He didn't want to damage his Walkman.
True.
Yes.
True. Yeah. No, I've got nothing to promote. Keep listening to the Bullet Time podcast. I'm sometimes on the Jump Crouch podcast. We did a episode on Fallout 1, the OG. That'll be coming out soon, so I'll be on that if you guys want to hear my perspective on that little ditty. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I'm on YouTube still, Zac Frazier. Maybe someday I'll make a video, but otherwise, yeah, just keep on listening to pods and listening to James and the guests. Shoot the shit. Go watch his new video when it comes out. It's been out since our episode releases.
I guess, I suppose that's true. There might be another episode after that. It depends on busy. I don't know. Busy times in the moment. We gotta do more episodes of Bullet Time as well at some point.
Yeah.
Get to it. Speaking of which, if you enjoyed this episode, feel free to leave us a comment on your podcast app of choice. If you really liked it, like we said earlier on, you can help support more the production of more episodes of the podcast over on Patreon at Hotcider, HOTCYDER. You can also follow me on Twitter and YouTube at Hotcider as well. Until next time, though, what did we say last time for the Darkness? Was it like keep eating hearts out, but then did we say like keep pumping or something like that? I can't remember.
Keep pumping.
What would we say for this one?
Keep
imping. Because he was the star of this game. Keep imping. Keep your goblin levels up.
Yeah.
In 2024, keep your goblin levels up. That's what I'm gonna say to folks at home.
When in doubt, go goblin mode.
Yeah, when in doubt, goblin out. Yep. That's what I'm gonna say to folks. Say to all of you. Gremlin also fine. You can also gremlin out. That's good too.
Basically the same thing, It's like it's a raven and a crow. What's the difference,
Oh, I mean, if you hold on, let me just put an hour onto the end of this podcast.
Yes,
because we gotta clear some stuff up about that. This podcast has been made possible by Dylan Robinson, Eric Hamilton Schneider, Jesse Garasha, Kevin from Pixellet, Mouse, Twyla27, Valerie B, VG, and the Hot Cider support tier. If you'd like to help with the production of episodes and gain access to extra content, consider supporting over at patreon.com/hotcider. That's HOTCYDER. A special thanks to Max Coburn for the Bullet Time theme tune.